4. OTB AM.
With Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs razor with exfoliating bar.
All right, bang on 7:30. You're very welcome along. It's Tuesday morning. It's OTB AM. It's John Duggan with you all the way through until 10 a.m. Let's be having you. You can get us on our YouTube stream. Hopefully you've already subscribed to youtube.com/off the ball. If you haven't, press the button now. You can also tweet us at Off the Ball AM or whatever, however you want to get in touch with us. You know the drill by this stage. Owen, good morning to you.
Good morning, Ger.
It's Matt Doherty's world, and Seamus Coleman is just living in it at the moment. What?
That was a grimace for radio listeners.
Is he looking across and going, well, you weren't playing great for a while, and so I can also make a recovery from this?
You think Coleman is looking at Matt Doherty,
thinking Matt Doherty going, like 4 weeks ago we thought you were getting burned out of that club, and now you're Harry Kane's creator-in-chief.
Yeah, there's obviously one complication in that argument, and that is Coleman's age, isn't it? Doherty was not always likely to make a comeback. I didn't think that many people thought that the comeback was going to happen at Tottenham.
Definitely not.
And also as well, you're looking at Matt Doherty, who is 30 years of age now himself, so there was a chance that maybe he could have also been going through a sort of a downturn. But I think
it sounded like
night,
they were trying to offload him in the transfer window. It sounded like he was part of that group of 4 who they did get rid of, and they would have been happy to add him to it, and Conte would have whined about it afterwards but been like, well, no big deal. But actually what's happened is he is a symbol of the reflowering of the Antonio Conte era.
Yeah, and I think what it probably speaks to is behind the scenes that Matt Doherty can take what Antonio Conte is throwing at him, because even not behind the scenes, when Antonio Conte is in front of a microphone and talking about his team, he hasn't really pulled any punches. Even last night he was saying that we must get better after winning a game 5-0. Like, he is a very, very tough taskmaster, and Matt Doherty's been able to handle it. He's been somebody that he's been trusted to do a job. Obviously pulled himself into midfield positions last night and looked like Kevin De Bruyne at times, which was just not something that I think too many people would have seen coming, because it is quite different to how his peak materialised at Wolves, when he was very much a wide player who wasn't cutting in as a wing back, but hugging the touchline, getting crosses in, and was part of that all-action game under Nuno. This was much more calm and methodical, and showing just his technical capabilities as much as his capabilities as an athlete. And when you've got Harry Kane as your target man up front,
it helps.
It does help, but you've also got some of the goals Tottenham have scored recently have been spectacular. And like they really are, when they're on it, they look sensational at the moment. You still feel that there is a chance of them slipping up in various fixtures. Obviously this Saturday for them is a massive game. It's 5:30 themselves against Manchester United, so that's going to be a sort of who has had the biggest slip this season. You'd have to say Manchester United really are the ones who'd be vulnerable in that fixture, but it's Tottenham, which I'm sure will be part of the build-up.
Well, I mean, Ralph Rangnick won't be walking in going, lads, it's Tottenham. He'll be like, they'll be like, oh yeah, shit, they're going to beat us, aren't they? Michael Keane's finish was the best of the lot though last night. It was like, are we more sensitive to the mention of Seamus Coleman in that 7-minute surgical taking apart that Carragher did afterwards? Because he did also go to town on Keane, who he talked about Harry Kane running past him, and Harry Kane not being a sprinter. So Harry Kane's still pretty fast, I'd say he would have absolutely creamed Carragher in a sprint as well. Like, this bit of the pundits suddenly never having any flaws themselves I do wonder. So he obviously took Coleman out, he took Keane out, he took all their defence out. Are we more sensitive to the fact that Coleman is because he's our captain?
Yes, of course we are.
But it was a systems failure. I did think that they were all terrible.
Yeah, Seamus Coleman, one thing is that he's definitely not smart. He's always been a very intelligent footballer. His positioning's always been very good, and last night he looked out of position quite a bit and got caught with the ball going in. He got caught in the overlap just multiple times, which if you're an ageing defender, you probably don't let yourself get into that position a lot. So I wonder if it was a tactical instruction. But I do think that, I mean, if Frank Lampard wants to play a certain style of football, and Seamus Coleman isn't up to it as an athlete anymore to be able to produce that, then he is going to be in trouble, and that's the reality. That's just the way this goes.
Yeah.
He is club captain though, and
but you don't play the front two or front now three-ish that Spurs have every week. Like, there's going to be a lot of games where he can play on the right side of a three and be fine, you know.
There's a bit more protection for him. Like, I do think that this conversation has obviously happened quite a bit about Coleman, and just because he has proved people wrong in the past doesn't mean he's going to do it again, especially given how things will go in your mid-30s. So I think
he's in his early 30s. He's only 33.
Okay, yeah.
You're going to learn this is important as time goes on.
Yeah, no, it is. That's the fair cop.
You're in your late 20s now, are you?
Yeah. Well, it doesn't really matter, does it?
I mean, it does.
My pace was long gone. So, like, even if you're thinking about who would be the potential Irish options, it's kind of like one in, one out with what Stephen Kenny's looking at, with Omar Bamidele out and Darragh O'Shea in. And
O'Shea came into the team but was out of the team again.
Yeah.
So he was out last week.
I mean, in fitness-wise.
Yeah, but just in terms of actually playing football at the moment,
yeah.
he's not first choice at the moment at club level.
Yeah, which is a little bit of a concern. And I mean,
they got beaten at the weekend, so maybe he gets back in. So we'll see.
We will see. And it's I guess it's a different setup as well. If you're going to have Coleman on the right of a three and possibly somebody else on a right wing back. Like, I mean, Matt Doherty obviously has been excellent for Ireland at left wing back, and I think it's probably shown last night that he is a bit more versatile in that position just in front of your backline, whether it's a three or a four, that he can play in those positions. But for Everton, like, I mean, it's such a worrying situation that they're in. Like, a championship defence is obviously how Carragher described them last night, and they just desperately need to get Yerry Mina and Ben Godfrey back ASAP, and hope that they stay back and get them through this situation. I think it's 8 of their remaining games are at home, which is obviously the big thing.
For a narrative perspective, would you rather Burnley stay up or Everton stay up?
Burnley. From a narrative perspective, Everton going down would be extraordinary. And what would happen to the club then would be very, very interesting. And whether or not they can use this as some sort of, I don't know, like, there isn't really a great example of a team who've gone down and come back up and used that as like a rocket ship, unless they've got like Saudi investment. So even that is yet to be confirmed just yet. But like, I can't see a world where Everton going down would be good news for them, even in the medium term. All
right, OTB AM is brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. Here's what's coming up between now and 10 o'clock. We're going to speak with Ali Donnelly about the Irish rugby situation. Gary Brennan is going to join us at 8:10 to talk about the merger between the LGFA, the Camogie Association, and the GAA. The sports pages at 8:30. We'll talk with John Duggan about Spurs and virtual insanity. Pearl Slattery is going to join us at 8:40. The return of the WSL last week. She scored the winner for Shells to get their season up and running. We've got Phil Egan in at 9:10 and Danny Mills and Pat Nevin talking Everton and Manchester United later on in the show. If you want to get in touch, 0879 180 180 is the WhatsApp number. But to the report into the failure of the Irish women's team to qualify for the Rugby World Cup, I'm delighted to say Ali Donnelly is with us of Scrum Queens. Ali, good morning to you. How are you getting on?
Yeah, good morning. Thanks for having me.
So last Friday the report dropped, and it's fair to say that it was generally positively received. I did think a few things about it were odd, which we might get to in a few minutes. But what was you've had a weekend to digest this, and you've written about this in the Examiner, 5 key takeaways. On balance, you seem to think it was a step forward, but it's proceed with caution, I think. Is that fair assessment of your takeaways?
Yeah, I think a cautious welcome is probably the right way to look at this. And, you know, if you took some time to look through the recommendations, they were in some ways almost underwhelming in that they were so basic and so simple, and they're sort of the kind of things you would expect to already be up and running and well established within a high performance program, which, you know, is supposed to be there to get the best out of players. So, you know, in some ways you could say, actually all they're doing are the nuts and bolts they should have been doing. But in another way, many of those things weren't happening. And so the fact that they are now, plus there's a commitment of you know, important new investment. Plus I think the change in tone from the IRFU felt to me very important. You know, Kevin Potts struck a very conciliatory tone in the press conference that he did, and also you've seen the words that he issued. So I do think we can look forward fairly positively to a new era in the game there, while also kind of watching on to make sure that all these things do happen.
How is an audit of that ongoing? Like, one of the things that seems to have happened is that the players have accepted that the good faith, rather, of the organisation has been accepted by the players. So who's going to keep a watching brief? Because when the players were at a bit of a remove, or when they had the former players to be mouthpieces for them, that felt like there was at least going to be some kind of checks and balances in the system. How do we just make sure that this doesn't... It's not window dressing, the report isn't shelved, they go back to the old ways and everybody moves on with their lives? How do we prevent that happening?
Yeah, well, I think that is what happened in 2017. So after the failure at the last World Cup to get out of their pool, a whole new set of targets were published a year later, all of which I think almost all of them haven't been met, because nobody really understood what lay behind that. How are you going to achieve that? What do the players know about where you're going? Whereas this time, I think you do have... they published a progress report alongside it, so you could see, what targets or what recommendations were already in train. And we had a promise from Kevin Potts that there would be an implementation plan published. There's also another review coming later this year, which is looking at the whole game. So presumably it's around, how you get more women into grassroots, how you link those things up along a pathway. So I think this does feel a little different. Yes, of course, there are cynics, and I've definitely been one of those in the past around the IRFU's ability to deliver for women and girls. So I think we've got to keep hold of that. But I also think, hopefully, those 4 players who've been involved in the discussions, and maybe joined by others, can stay involved. They seem to have built a good relationship now with various people at Sport Ireland, in government, and at the IRFU. And I think it would be foolish to the IRFU not to use them as a kind of consultation group or a sounding board, etc.
The main sporting bodies, and I'm talking about the big 3, the FAI, the GA and the IRFU, always like to keep Sport Ireland at least an arm's length remove, and even further if possible. They'll take the funding and they'll make sure that happens, but they don't want any interference or any sense of why are you, this is none of your business, this is our organisation. And yet it feels like Sport Ireland are essentially the mouthpiece for the government, and the government have been very strong on female representation on committees and all that kind of stuff. So it feels like the IRFU really, really need the women's game to take off. They need the influx of female coaches, administrators and extra players who they can, generate revenue from and sell tickets to and sell merchandise for. And that penny hasn't quite dropped. It certainly hasn't dropped with the other organisations too. And we're going to talk about the merger in the GA in about 20 minutes. But why is that, do you think, Ali?
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I mean, I think on the first bit around the influence and the importance of Sport Ireland ministers, the players wrote the letter to the ministers for a reason. They felt that they tried to make change internally for years and nothing was happening. So they knew that, going almost over the head of the IRFU, which is essentially what that was, and, getting some public pressure via TVs and so on in government around funding would help. I think in terms of women's rugby, I can't speak for the other sports there, but the penny has dropped in other countries, and the penny is that, the dropping is that understanding that if you're a national governing body, part of your job, among many others, and I don't think NGB have it easy, to be honest, but part of your job is to recruit players into your sport. And the most important strategic area of participation growth in almost every country, particularly the established nations, is women. And I think, I'm talking to you in London, and I, for all their flaws, I know the RFU over the years, they have now understood that a bit quicker than Ireland, and they've made women and girls rugby a strategic priority, and you can see the difference here. Now, they always have an inbuilt advantage in terms of numbers here, but the penny hasn't dropped amongst everybody involved in women's rugby or rugby in Ireland. It might now have at the top of the game, but Kevin Potts has got a hard job. He's got to almost bring his whole organisation and all the volunteers around the game with him and say, we need the growth of women and girls rugby, because one of my jobs is to make sure the game's in rude health at grassroots level, and all the big numbers are coming from this part of the game. And then the other end of it, just to finish off, is there's a massive opportunity in terms of longer term return on your investment. So, where are the new TV deals being struck, and where are we likely to get more and different sponsorship investment? Well, that's the women's game at the highest level. So, organisations would be foolish to ignore that, I think, in the long run.
obviously the full details of the report haven't been published, but if you look at the recommendations, you can probably read between the lines as to what was included in the report. And some of the things here, like just really going through just some random episodes within this, create and constantly monitor a value-driven culture and environment based on performance, learning and enjoyment is one of the recommendations. Another one is put deliberate attention on the fitness, strength and conditioning of front five players in the system. I think what that suggests is that that hadn't been done, and that was recommended within the report or mentioned within the report. And I think some of those details may actually be shocking to people if that report was ever brought to light about some of the things that weren't being done within the system.
Definitely. And I think the thing to say, if you're not a women's rugby kind of follower, is that the women's game has moved on massively since the last World Cup, and Ireland have stood still. And if those things were missing, I'm sure some of those were there in some guys, but not clearly at the level they should have been. Otherwise, Amanda Bennett and her team wouldn't have felt the need to black and white put them in there. Then they were going to fall behind. I mean, if you look at Scotland, who are the team, I guess, who leapfrogged Ireland and secured that last place at the World Cup later this year, they did a quite innovative thing a few years back, and they gave a bunch of players what they call 2021 contracts, which were, that's something, contracts are not the be all and end all, but they identified we need to do something different here to try and qualify for the next World Cup, and we need to put in place some interesting high performance ideas to do that. And that sort of thinking wasn't happening there. And it's going to have to change, because there's only a 3-year window now to the next World Cup. I don't know what the qualification path's going to look like, but Ireland are going to have to be at that World Cup. It looks like it's going to be here in England. And so there's not much of a window now for error, and they've got to try and play catch up, even with nations that they would expect to normally beat, the Scotland, Wales and Italy's of this world. So be a really interesting Six Nations this year, just for that perspective alone.
One of the other things, we had Hannah Tyrrell on the show yesterday, and she was talking about her decision to step away was like she was always going to step away at the end of the last World Cup, but just talking about the difficulty that some of the players have in mixing the career path that they want with outside of rugby with the career path inside rugby, and how difficult it is to juggle those. That is going to be an issue for the IRFU. Is that where the extra million needs to go in the short term, or is the extra million actually better spent on coaches and pathways to make sure that the long term we produce players who are ready for the international game, and hope that the sponsorship catches up and that pays the players? It's a bit of a chicken and egg scenario. I'm interested in your view on that, given your proximity to what's going on in England, and you kind of have a good sense of what's happening in the other unions as well.
Yeah, I don't think you can put contracts in place without the nuts and bolts underneath it. And I think there's some people who are quite concerned in Wales, where there are a lot of, structures and processes missing around the pathways and the grassroots, and they've kind of come in over the top of that and handed players contracts. And that's going to be an interesting kind of story to watch. I think inevitably, if you want to keep up and you want to win things and you want to be in the sort of back in the top 4 in the world, which Ireland were once in, of course, you are going to have to at some point bite the bullet and look at contracts. Now, they may be hybrid contracts, which are a balance between sort of paying your players on a part-time basis, allowing them to continue with their careers, or full-time, as England have gone. Because even since 2017, more and more countries are looking at this. New Zealand have gone fully pro this year, which if you've been following the game for a long time, the NZ have traditionally not invested significantly in their national team. They used to just win anyway. So that's a big move. France are obviously paying players. Scotland have started to do it. Wales have started to do it. So eventually you're going to have to look at that and probably go down that path, because it's going to be too hard to keep up, and you're going to be competing in second tier rugby. And if that's acceptable, fine. If it's not, and I suspect it isn't for Ireland, that's something they're going to have to look at. But the other bits of the jigsaw have to be in place first.
It does seem that the IRFU maybe have been caught by surprise with how quickly the game has accelerated.
Yeah, and if you're not taking the time to look around you and to explore what's happening in other countries and really kind of have the insight and knowledge about how to make high performance sport work for women, then that's what's going to happen. And I think it's clear from these recommendations that all of those things weren't happening. And so it can't be a surprise really that they've fallen behind other countries. And I think it's important that therefore that Kevin was the front of all of this. I think he clearly understood that, I as the chief executive have to lead this and own it, because the trickle down effect of that is massive. And hopefully, we do start to see that sort of change creeping in over the next year or so.
You did make the point that it does sound like the IRFU are a new voice on this. I am definitely cynical about the fact that somebody who was so centrally involved in the operations of the IRFU is now fronting this, and I hope that it's a change. But it's not somebody who has come in from the outside and immediately diagnosed problems. It's somebody who's been there the whole time, and who was the chief operations officer, and so should have known about this and should in the past have been able to influence the outcome. So that's one of the reasons why I think we definitely need to keep a close eye on this.
Yeah, I think that's a very fair point, because it's inconceivable that he would not have been aware of some of the challenges around the programme, and he might not have been as in-depth involved as others in the senior leadership team there. But curiosity alone, I think, would dictate that you would understand the problem. So I think that's fair enough. But I do think you have to take what they announced last week at some face value. And, I've spoken to a lot of the players, and they were pretty impressed with him and the way that he conducted himself and the commitment that he's shown. So, all you can do there is sort of say, well, if they're happy, then, let's move forward with some positivity. And I think, Fiona Coughlin said it herself on television the other night, we've got to start looking forward. We spent a lot of time looking backwards in the Irish women's game and sort of, becoming annoyed and angry at what hasn't happened. And I think it's up to everyone involved in the game, stakeholders and the media are included in that, to continue to hold the RFU to account and hold their feet to the fire on whether they actually deliver what they said they would.
One last point on this then. The actual high performance director of the RFU wasn't part of the press conference announcing this, which did feel strange as well. So maybe a divorce between David Nucifor's responsibility and whoever is coming in to run the women's game isn't necessarily a bad thing, and maybe having separate performance directors for the men's and women's game is the direction this needs to go. I'm just not sure about why the high performance director wasn't there to discuss the high performance or the failings in the high performance unit with respect to the women's team.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point too. I suspect the CEO felt that, for this to be seen as real serious change, that he needed to front it. But I do think whoever is kind of running the women's game on a day-to-day and whoever they report into have got to believe in all the things that we've just talked about, so that it is a strategic area of priority. I don't know David, and I don't know his position on all of this, but he certainly has to buy into this or it won't work.
What was your read on the timing of the Anthony Eddy departure?
I honestly, not involved enough behind the scenes to hazard a guess at what actually happened there. But, I think his position in the Irish Women 15s programme was untenable and inevitable that he would have moved on from that. It looks like he's decided to leave himself. Look, my understanding of Anthony is that he's a fantastic coach and perhaps, was given far too big a job and inevitably focused on one area, and 7s over 15s is probably, looks to me like what he decided to do. They've got people in there now who are given the right time and resources to do the job properly, and hopefully that's what we're going to see.
Ali, good stuff. Thanks a million for joining us this morning. Cheers.
Thank you.
You should check out scrumqueens.com for more on women's rugby. That's Ali Donnelly, who founded Scrum Queens. OTB AM brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. And Mark says, good morning, lads. I lasted about 20 minutes of that Spurs versus Everton game last night. If Everton managed to find 3 teams worse than them in the league this season, they will completely have lucked out. Sometimes you need to be a lucky manager as opposed to a good manager, and there's no evidence yet that Frank Lampard is a good manager.
No. Are we going to revise the Everton are too good to go down theory at this point? If you come back to what Carragher was saying last night,
I didn't think they were too good to go down. He's saying Dominic Calvert-Lewin's up front. But when was Dominic Calvert-Lewin good? It's been a while.
Like last season. But I was just about to say, he's saying that it's the championship level defence that's costing them. And when you lose 5-0, of course, that's he's not wrong. But I wonder if that attack is getting off with a little bit of a lack of criticism itself, because Calvert-Lewin was amazing last year. And I
overheard John Duggan in the office saying 0 shots on target last night.
Yeah, but Calvert-Lewin hasn't come back from his injury troubles anywhere near the player that he looked last season. And it's
potentially a one-season wonder?
Possibly, but also you've got a very limited window between now and the end of the season. This is in August. The form lines have been kind of etched out pretty clearly at this point, and for Calvert-Lewin to come good at this point, he's going to have to do it very, very quickly. The same with Richarlison at this point, who has been an excellent player. Don't get me wrong.
Nathan's buddy.
like, I mean, in the build-up to this game, like, he'd been telling us that he had informed Frank Lampard that centre forward is now his preferred position. He scored 4 goals in the Premier League this season, I think. So it's, I think that night against Arsenal, maybe when he was offside a couple of times, was possibly his best showing for Everton this season. I'm not necessarily sure that attack is all it's cracked up to be. But then again, it's not cracked up to be much. It's just not a championship level attack, maybe. It's just a championship level defence. And then, of course, you've got the enigma in midfield of someone like Donny van de Beek, who's getting paid handsomely by the club, of course, who took on a lot of the wages of Van de Beek. All his wages, I should say.
Do they? I think. Garen, are we sure about that? Are we sure Man United didn't say, here, we'll pay half? Are we sure?
Well,
I mean, I'd love to see the actual, when Football Leaks publishes the documents.
We will find out what actually happened here on the situation. Like, I mean, just kind of on a tangent to last night a little bit. You've got to admire like how headstrong Antonio Conte is at times. Like, and sometimes you can say stuff before a game, and you're like, why would I even say that? Because that could just come back to bite me in the ass. And he was obviously asked about like Dele Alli, and he said, I don't remember a player that when he went away came back with a great spirit of revenge. During my coaching, I always try to be honest with the players and give them the possibility to show them that they deserve to play. I don't remember a player that had their revenge with me. What usually happens is that when players went away, they went down, not up. And I mean, Antonio Conte is you would think that maybe he would have been jinxing himself in a negative sense at that point, but he came off the bench yesterday. Dele Alli's not starting at the moment for them, and I think Frank Lampard's still trying to work out what his best 11 is. But as I say, it's the 8th of March. Like, I mean, he's got to figure this thing out very, very quickly. Like, you'd suspect that their Goodison form maybe the thing that keeps them up, and they do have a lot of games at home coming up, like Wolves and Newcastle at home, I think, are their next 2 fixtures. So we'll know a lot more after the end of those 2 games.
Calvert-Lewin started the season really well, scored 3 goals in 3 games back in August.
Yeah.
Back in August 2021.
Yeah.
Hasn't scored since. Obviously fractured his toe, and then has been back since start of January. Played against Brighton, played 90 minutes. The game against Leicester was cancelled. Played against Norwich, played against Villa. Was on the bench against Newcastle, not used. Played most of the game against Leeds. Played against Southampton. Wasn't in the squad against City. Doesn't say he was injured. Played against Spurs. 0 goals.
Yeah, you'd have to be concerned looking at that. Like, it's like he has.
I'm not. Obviously, he is a function of what's going on around him, and the team are not creating chances, and blah 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 blah. But like, you know, he ain't Alan Shearer. You know, this isn't. He was good last season. We've seen strikers have good seasons.
Yeah, no, but he was. I do remember, like, the year before when Duncan Ferguson had taken over for a while. That's when he'd started to sparkle, and I still think he got like a dozen or so Premier League goals that season. Then he'd like notched it up to 15, 16 Premier League goals last season. So there was a nice layering on of Calvert-Lewin, where it was like, this guy can now target 20 Premier League goals, and maybe this is a guy that Manchester United or something could be thinking about signing, because he's going to be English first of all, and he's going to be one of the foremost number 9s in the league, potentially on that tier below Harry Kane, not anywhere on that same level, but on a tier below him. So an effective top half Premier League player, and this season obviously has just been a real disappointment.
One more point about the Carragher rant, right? Which we have been focused almost exclusively on what he said about Seamus Coleman, and he might be right, we're not sure. This is not, it's not great for our prospects. But it was like, I thought they were going to stay up because the fans immediately backed and had faith in Frank Lampard. It was like, the wisdom of the fans is not always the thing that you want. The fans picking the manager isn't really. They needed to pick the best manager, not the most popular manager.
No, because
it's not a popularity contest right now. It is a football contest, and the best football managers, the Sean Dyches, it's a human celebrity death match between Sean Dyche and Frank Lampard. Who's winning that fight?
Well, like, I mean, you've got
top off, oiled up. Who's winning the fight?
I wish it were that simple. I wish it was just an oiled up fight between those 2 people, but it's not. Obviously, it is
now. Metaphorically, it's the team.
But it's not. I mean, Leeds and Brentford are absolutely. It's a 4-way at this point. It's
so they might both stay up. You mean?
Yeah, and you got an oiled up Thomas Frank and Jesse Marsh coming into the whole situation.
And
as
after
well.
he's killed those 2, it's down to right Lampard. It's you and me.
Yeah, well, if he kills with those two, then it could be Brentford or Leeds who go down. Like, I mean, Brentford obviously got that win at the weekend. That was huge. And Leeds didn't. So they're still hugely vulnerable. Everton have 2 games in hand on Leeds, and they're only 1 point behind them.
Yeah. 2 games in hand to get beaten 5-0 and 5-0. for them to do damage to their goal difference.
The next 2 games are at home. I'm like, I mean, again, making predictions is stupid based on teams getting relegated because they will let you down invariably. But I would back Everton to stay up. I would, if I had to guess, I think Everton is staying up.
Okay, I'll bet you a fancy breakfast they won't.
100% of Kenny Cunningham's choosing.
Yeah, Kenny gets the pick wherever.
You actually think Everton are going down?
I think it's very difficult to recover from stuff like this. There's like it's like a tailspin, straight into the ground.
He still does have this kind of like intangible credit in the bank where it's
does
like
he?
It's
does he?
Yeah, because
for what
he can still say we're still trying to figure out these problems here. This Rubik's Cube has been scrambled by the previous manager, and I'm just trying to...
And I brought Van de Beek and Dele Alli in as the cavalry to rescue me. And when I had the opportunity to play Dele Alli in a game that he might be completely motivated for, didn't pick him.
Do you think that the Everton fan who scribbled Pereira out, Lampard in on the wall regrets his decision now?
I think so. I think he's like... No, it's going to come good. But there's no way that they would ever have allowed themselves. He could have saved them from relegation by now by winning every game since he arrived, and they'd still be like, Frank Lampard would have won it better.
Yeah, quite possibly. I still think Lampard has enough there to get them out of this very sticky situation. It doesn't look good. It doesn't, last night was pretty stark, to be honest. But Spurs are a very good team, and when they've looked good recently, they've looked excellent. They've in attack in particular, and as I say, I think it is just a real concern how Everton just couldn't lay a glove on them attacking wise themselves to even at least make it like a 5-1 or a 5-2 or something a little bit less embarrassing than a 5-0.
Somebody says talk about Arsenal.
Somebody just says talk about Arsenal.
That's it. You must be excited.
100%. You do look at this Saturday's fixture between Manchester United and Spurs, and you kind of hope that Manchester United win the fixture or that it's a draw, that Spurs are looking a bit of a threat at the moment. I know Arsenal have to play both of them, and they have to play Liverpool midweek next week. So I think that there will be a good sense of where Arsenal are at after that. But right now, Arteta knows his team. They're playing a really good style of football, and they're grinding out results.
If Arsenal get beaten 3-0 by Liverpool, that's not like a wake-up call or a reality check or anything like that. That's where those two teams are. One of the best teams in the world, playing with all of their available players and festooned with Champions League and league winners, versus a team of kids who are coming. That should be 3-0 if you're actually going out and trying to express yourself, as opposed to, we're going to put 8 men behind the ball and park the bus, because that's not what the team needs at this stage of their development.
No,
they need to go out and learn toe to toe, because you can develop park the bus mentality, like in a 2-legged tie, in a knockout in European football. Fine, right? And maybe he does that because he feels that's an important way to go about it. But it'd be much better to see them go out and try and be themselves now at this stage of evolution because they've been able to react quite well to those defeats this season.
Well, I was just about to say, I'm not sure they have. I think that the one against Manchester City on New Year's Day was a particularly chastening one. Obviously, the red cards, the celebration from Roger right in front of the Arsenal fans, that one really stuck in the craw, and it felt like a little bit of a setback. And the question was how would they respond. They got knocked out in the Cup the next week by Forest. They had that 0-0 draw with Burnley at the end of that month, and then they had the defeat to Liverpool over 2 legs in the EFL Cup, and January was just a little bit of a write-off. They managed to get the Spurs game postponed within January, which may prove to be one of the smartest things they managed to do all season if it manages to come back and Arsenal get something from that game, because I think in that moment I think Arsenal might have lost that North London derby, but they managed to kick that back a little bit, and in the middle of that January wreckage they didn't lose as many games as they possibly could have. So I'm not sure they actually did handle the setback of the Manchester City game as well as you think. But what did happen was kind of out of the blue then. They kind of ground out that result at Molineux, and the same with the Brentford and the return game against Wolves. And then all of a sudden, on Sunday, they actually put in one of their better performances recently, where they're like, okay, we're confident again. And that's what a young team kind of needs, where it's like, we played badly there for the last little while, and we got 3 points in 3 games in a row. we're actually quite good at this thing. We're actually very, very good at football. And all of a sudden, you've got like Saka looking at Odegaard, and like, I mean, are these players completely unaware of, you know, the career path of certain players? Like, do you think Arsenal players looked at Odegaard and thought to themselves, we're not sure if this guy is actually the wonder kid he was supposed to be a couple of years ago? And actually, he's just proven to his teammates over the course of this season that he actually is a fairly special player. And I think Arsenal have done an incredible piece of business getting him in. It's like, it is rosy in the garden. There's no getting away from it. But it would be a hell of a conclusion now they managed to get top 4, because all of a sudden those kids are looking around saying we've reached a very good staging point here. Spurs are a threat.
Yeah. They are, after last night, and all of a sudden that race for 4th is going to be one of the most compelling things that we have to look forward to for the rest of the season. OTB AM is brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. We're going to take a quick break. We're back talking about the potential GA merger and plenty more besides. If you've got a view and you want to get it off your chest this morning, leave a comment on the YouTube stream or tweet us at OffTheBallAM. You can use the hashtag OTBAM either. Back after this.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
Off the ball's the best, number one.
It's the GOAT of sports apps.
Talk about the greatest of all time. Nathan, you know Big Joe. Big Joe's the greatest of all time. He's the GOAT. We know it.
So
every single time. Yes. Yes.
It's tough going. It's tough for my ego. I'm going to say I'm the Djokovic of this scenario.
I love it. Love it.
This is OTB Sports Radio. Download the OTB Sports app now.
With prices from only €289 for fully comprehensive car insurance, everyone's making the jump to getsetgo.ie. New business policies only. Prices subject to minimum premiums. T's and C's apply. MCL Insurance Services Limited Trading is getsetgo.ie is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
OTB AM.
With Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs razor with exfoliating bar.
Yeah, you're welcome back to OTB AM. Very briefly going to talk about a piece in the papers today. Neil O'Riordan. Inconsistency in delivery of live games a turn-off. Without airing weekly matches, RTE is not helping raise awareness of the league in a meaningful way. And he's talking about the comparison between rugby and the League of Ireland. It's an excellent piece, thoughtful and very self-aware, but it does say you can't help but feel there's a lost opportunity to capitalise on the new season interest in the league and to try to mobilise that and create a sense of momentum around it. What is RTE showing as an alternative? Last week, it was Ulster Rugby's URC clash against Cardiff Blues, which was also being shown by BBC and Premier Sports. RTE's broadcast from Ravenhill, which was geo-blocked outside the Republic of Ireland, attracted 68,000 viewers, 6% audience share, peaking at 91,000. When you consider the combined population of Cavan, Donegal and Monaghan is under 300,000, that's not bad. And it was, of course, higher than the 2 League of Ireland games the previous 2 Fridays. But it's not hard to imagine that Pats and Rovers, given their fan bases, could have attracted something similar, and those watching would have got far more of a contest than in the 48-12 win for Dan McFarlane's side. This week, RTE is showing the Six Nations clash between Wales and France. It may be a snapshot in time, but it leaves us with the curious scenario whereby a Welsh rugby fan is being better served on these 2 weekends by the Irish state broadcaster than the Irish football supporter.
That's remarkable, isn't it? It's I think it's the Shells Dundalk this Friday as well, which might have been the pick of the games. No, sorry, Rovers Bowls will be the pick of the games. Yeah, sorry, this Friday. That'll definitely be the standout fixture. So, yeah, it's a bit mad. Like, and also the thing is, like, it's not just about the current figures, is it? It's also about like what that figures would become by flowering along over the next couple of seasons, because you become more familiar with the league, with the players, and those numbers would grow. Whereas it feels like maybe the old Pro 14 current URC is operating at or close to its potential at the moment. Obviously, if it's an Irish derby, it's completely different. Like there'll be a multiple of that figure tuning in. But for the Ulster against a Welsh or a Scottish team or an Italian team, I think
during the Six Nations,
I think that those are, you're not going to do much better than that ever. Whereas the league
obviously committed showing all the games though.
Yeah.
With the aim of trying to build up the league.
Yeah.
It's like that logic is being applied. We're going to put this on repeat so everybody knows when the big games come, this is where they're going to come. It's almost like if you build it, they will come. But that does not apply to the League of Ireland. It seems to me, says Neil O'Riordan, If RTE or any other broadcaster is not willing to commit to more comprehensive coverage that will raise the profile of the league in a meaningful way, then a parting of the ways is for the best. Concentrating efforts on building up LOI TV into a better product with a more flexible subscription model looks like a better option than plodding along with the current arrangement. It's hard to disagree with that. It is hard to disagree. It's not something that is being lavished attention or interest or care as part of this deal. Find a partner who loves you.
Yeah,
you know, you're like, the relationship is not good.
Obviously,
you need to get out of this relationship. Would be the dear Mary, I'm in a long-term relationship which seems to be stuck in a rut. Occasionally, I get some attention, and then I'm not quite sure why I get more attention, and then the attention disappears for months at a time. I mean, this is a loveless marriage they're trapped in.
Yeah, but they take it on the prospect of love coming down the line at one stage.
But maybe there's somebody else out there. It's a big bad world.
Maybe there
Go
is.
and find somebody,
Well,
or force them to love you by saying you're going to show every game. If you want to show our international games, if you want to love me in the Aviva, you've got to love me in Bray, and maybe not go in Cork just yet until I get back into the Premier League. But you got to love me in Talca.
Yeah,
and you got to love me in Tala.
One thing I would say to that is that obviously there was like a big financial pressure on RTE and Virgin to get Six Nations rights, and as part of that package, you obviously have to show France against Wales.
But you don't have to show the under-20s. You don't. All that is like, it's a rule. We have to show this game. You don't. You don't have to show those games. You can make a decision, or you can put them on your News Now channel if you want.
Yeah, fair.
Or you can put it free to air on YouTube. There's a million different ways around this. You can be creative if you want to be. If there's a will.
The thing is that when you're buying the package, which include the Ireland games or some of the Ireland games, you get these games for free as well. And it's like, we've paid for it, so we may as well throw it on. You know?
So So they have lavished more care and attention on club GA matches than they do on the national football soccer.
Yeah, there was definitely an effort made, and rightly so, to get club games onto TV and to give more exposure to some of those club stories. And I think they should be looking at that, the League of Ireland, and saying, why aren't we getting that?
I think that's exactly what they are saying.
Yeah.
But Ulster versus Dragons.
They're not being listened to.
Right, give us your views. 8:10 this morning. It's your taxpayers' money that we're talking about, by the way. So if you've got a view on that, we'd love to hear from you. 0879 180 180 is the WhatsApp number, or you can leave a comment on the YouTube stream. And a reminder, OTB AM is brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. Now, we want to talk about the potential merger between the LGFA, the Camogie Association, and the GA, and I'm delighted to welcome Gary Brennan to the show. Gary's written a very thoughtful, interesting, thought-provoking piece in The Examiner, which we'll tweet a link to, and you should check it out. It's just a very interesting perspective, Gary, that we thought today would be a good day, International Women's Day, to have a chat to you about. How are you getting on?
I'm good, Jerry. Yeah, thanks for having me.
So, people will know you as a Clare footballer and a hurler with Ballier. But you're also married to a camogie player and had a first-hand view of the differences between the difficulties that camogie players at intercounty level and footballers at intercounty level have.
Yeah, that's right. I didn't have to look too far for inspiration for that piece, I suppose, that you mentioned. My wife, Niamh, played camogie with Limerick senior for, I could miss quote here, 15, if not 16 years, I think. She was playing since she was 15 years of age, I think, and never officially retired, but isn't currently playing senior camogie with Limerick, to put it that way. So I suppose I had a very clear insight into how our lifestyles differed. And I often say that I didn't really train fully until I met Niamh. She showed me what preparation and training is really about. So I suppose I could just see the allowances, or what we were afforded as male players, was so much, things were so much easier for us than they were for our female counterparts. And the piece, I suppose, wasn't me trying to say that what I do here in St. Flannan's or what we do in Clare is perfect or anything like that. It was kind of a reflection piece for us all to maybe just take a step back and consider and think about what it's like to be on the other side of the fence, and that was kind of the motivation for it. And as I say, it was very easy for me to see that, just looking at Niamh at home and how she used to prepare, and I suppose what challenges she had to overcome compared to what I had to overcome.
Can you give us some examples? Like, what was the most striking stuff as you would have gone along and kind of it slowly dawns on you, ooh, my life's a bit easier than this. I don't have to do all that.
Yeah, well, just from day to day, I suppose. Like, if you took a typical training week, so if we had to do a gym session on a Monday, we probably had access, or we met at a couple of different slots at the gym, the county gym that we had for Clare. Whereas for Neve's team, they were probably looking to try and book a 1 hour slot. They had to be there at that particular time. They had to travel to do it. Then training pitches, on a Wednesday night, we had our dressing rooms, our pitch, everything laid on for us, whereas their team, they might have been waiting until the last minute to try and get a pitch. That pitch might have been pulled sometime in the afternoon, and they have to go and find another pitch, or maybe not even a pitch, maybe train somewhere on the back of a pitch somewhere with very poor light, may not have dressing rooms, so no shower after training, whereas we can have the shower, sit down, have a bit to eat, have a chat with the lads and head away. So even from that social side, I suppose it's far easier for male players most of the time. And I'm not saying that every male player has it really easy and every female player has it really tough. There are challenges for both in different situations. But there are some of the examples: meals after training, mileage rate. I mean, some of the mileage Niamh would have been putting up in the car was mad, and no expenses for it, compared to male players getting 50 or sometimes 60 cents a mile. Nutritional support, psychological support, things like that I think I would have seen for Niamh's team, for Limerick Camogie in later years, but not to the same extent that we would have had as male players. So it's just gear, another thing, and I actually think that the gear that we get as male players is far too much. I don't think we need half the gear. We're getting a gear bag full of gear every year. There's just no need for it all. But, a lot of the gear maybe that they would have gotten with Limerick Camogie, they might have had to do their own fundraising or go out and source themselves or things like that. So just, I suppose, where I was able to go and concentrate on my own playing and my own training, for Niamh and for many of our counterparts, they had a lot of other things to consider as well before they could even think about training and playing.
Obviously, the contrast there is striking when you compare the experience that she's had as a Limerick Camogie player and say the experiences of the Limerick hurlers over the last little while and how well resourced they have been. That kind of makes the whole thing more striking, I'd suspect.
Yeah, I'd imagine so. I suppose there's possibly an argument that the Limerick hurlers maybe are better resourced than a lot of other male counties too, and that is something that happens amongst, even if we have a merger here, which we hopefully will have, that won't stop some teams being resourced better than others, and I suppose that's not what I'm striving for, what I'd like to see, but I would like to see a basic level, a minimum requirement for all teams, male or female. Because there's always going to be those imbalances or those differences between counties, or some counties are going to employ a system that allows them to provide more resources for their teams or provide them in a different way. And that's not necessarily the worst thing, but I suppose just having a minimum standard for all players, be they male or female, and having the same opportunities to focus on playing and training is what I'd like to see.
You're a teacher in St. Flannan's and you've worked with the girls' teams there as well. So, there's a generation coming through that hopefully won't experience what your wife experienced, and that there's a generation of lads coming through who won't experience what you saw, which was some kind of, you didn't have a sense of privilege about it, but you were aware of the fact that it was privileged, and that's what needs to happen. But it really definitely, I know, we keep saying that, this is actually happening already at club level, and it's being driven by the clubs and it's being driven by the grassroots. But it does need the top of the organisation to say, right, we've caught up with you all and this is how it's going to be, and this merger is happening, here's how it's going to work, and we have full equality now. There's no ifs, ands or buts about it.
Yeah, it needs a statement of intent, and for all the excellent work that is happening in clubs around the country, following a one club model, and Niamh's club actually would be one of those where all teams participate under the same code and same name, same colour, same name, and share resources. But it's a hand in Limerick. But for all of that good work, there still are separate organisations, and if the GA wanted at any stage, they could make things more, difficult for the camogie teams or the ladies football teams in that club. So, or in any of those clubs that are doing that. So I think it's important that just from a basic level, the structure is right to start with. Make it all the one organisation. You mentioned in school there, as part of the new Leaving Cert PE curriculum, we were just having a discussion with, as it so happens, my class of Leaving Cert is all boys, which is a rare thing now in St. Flanagan's here. We're a mixed school. But I have 19 boys in the class. And I suppose just trying to get them to see it from other people's perspective as well, and from a female player's perspective. And things that, I had a different perspective, but I'd readily admit that I didn't always have a good insight into what it was like for a female player. So, and I know Joanna Reardon wrote an excellent piece and spoke very well last year about how it shouldn't take for males to have an insight into female sport for them to start speaking up. But, unfortunately, I maybe wasn't as aware as I should have been beforehand, but now I am, and I suppose I'd like to try and contribute to the discussion some bit. And if I can make some male players more aware of what it's like for a female player, well, then maybe that will help progress the discussion and help bring somewhat more balance to it. And I think that's important, that we're teaching guys and girls that at 14, 15, 16 and younger even, rather than waiting until they're adults and maybe they have a bit more insight. So, I would just like to see a case where an 8 or 9-year-old goes down to the club, or 6 or 7, whatever age they're starting now, and they're all part of the one body, rather than immediately being separated into, well, that's the camogie group over there, that's the hurling team over there. But they're all one club and one unit and working together, I suppose, in one direction.
Yeah, because it can only lead to a flowering of the organisation in a multitude of different ways. Like it's actually quite exciting when you think about what the end of this process is going to be. But there's a
big time. I mean, if you talk about the sharing of resources that could happen. I mean, if you even look at the efficiency of use of resources, like if you looked at, for example, in Clare here, the Clare men's footballers, the hurlers, the ladies footballers and the camogie team, they're probably all, for example, employing a different strength and conditioning coach, employing different physios, potentially different nutritionists. I mean, there's huge opportunity there for centralising that, having a core team who's responsible for the performance of all the inter-county teams in the county, and maybe having different layers within that, or different groups within that would work with the individual teams. But I just think it could be far more efficient and work far better for everyone, not just for ladies football or camogie.
And then you can see that being a resource that clubs can tap into as
exactly.
And when it becomes appropriate. So what do you actually think is the main barrier to this? Because everybody is making the right noises, and yet I'm not quite sure what the roadmap is for it to happen.
Yeah, I don't really know the answer to that question, Ger, to be honest with you. I know that I did have conversations with Egan O'Farrell when he was president of the GA, and we were on the International Rules Tour, and at the time he told me that this was the one thing he would like to have achieved more than anything. That was back in 2017, I think, before he left office. So I know it's something that I suppose has been wanted from different quarters at different stages. Maybe there's been some hesitancy from some of the female organisations, in that they maybe feel that their rights and that the deal mightn't work out to their benefit, and that's an understandable concern. I think it's important that if we are looking at a merger, that it's a very clear discussion, that we look at how this will work best for everyone, so there's probably been a bit of hesitancy and a bit of concern there, but I think it's striking that the ladies football have they passed the motion at the weekend that the GPA had put forward, or a similar motion, to the GPA one. They I think edited the Galway motion that had been proposed, so it reflected the same wording as the GPA motion to GA Congress. So, and the Camogie Association have publicly committed that they will back it as well. So I think now we're starting to see more alignment in the thinking, and I think that more is a commitment to prioritise it. So this was like, I'd be watching with interest to see what that means and what that leads to. But at the very least, there's a commitment now from all codes and all organisations to start working on this and see what it might look like for everyone going forward.
We're very wedded to symbols and stuff and tradition in Ireland, and sometimes it's a good thing and sometimes it's a bad thing. The name seems to be something that might be up for grabs. Is that important or not? I can't decide if the new organisation is going to be something which has a different name. It doesn't feel like it really matters, but it might for a lot of people.
I'm probably the wrong person to ask there, because I'd just be like, look, if it is a new name, it is a new name. What about it? You know, if it means a better future for everyone, then a new name, so be it. But that may be more important to some other people. So again, that's something that would have to be included in the conversation, and just see, I suppose, how much of a barrier is it going to be if a name is stopping the combination of all three organisations. I think we're in trouble. I think it'll be very, very hard to iron out the other issues that will arise as this happens, because this won't happen overnight and won't happen quickly. There'll be plenty of complications along the way, I'm sure, but I would certainly hope that a name wouldn't be top of that list.
Gary, when you're speaking like this and thinking about this, does any of your own experience come into it? And I mean that in the sense of being a footballer in what would traditionally be seen as a hurling county. Was there challenges that you guys had to overcome to get to a level where you were trying to look at the last eight consistently in whatever it was, the 2014, 2015, 2016 direction?
Just lost the middle of your question there, Owen, but I think if I took it right, it's just that to compare how my experiences maybe and trying to strive for better.
Yeah.
Might compare to the female players. I'm not sure if that was exactly what you said, but I'd be hesitant to,
particularly as a footballer in Clare, you know.
Yeah, and I won't lie that thought crossed my mind. I suppose that we were often the poor relation in the county, or seen as the poor relation, I should say, compared to the hurlers. But you know, I'd hesitate even to say that, because it's completely unfair for me to compare what it was like for me as a male Gaelic footballer to what it is like for a female player, because even though we may not have gotten everything that the hurlers got at times, or you know, we mightn't get the same support, it's still a different world completely to what it's like for a female player. So look, maybe that would have given me some small bit of insight, but I don't think it's anything compared to what female players are dealing with day to day.
Yeah, we there will be misogyny that we need to talk about and counteract as this change happens. There will be dinosaurs and clubs who will refuse to give the main pitch to the women's teams because they've never had it before, and that is maybe an unspoken part of this, is that we can't tolerate those attitudes anymore. We've kind of probably turned a blind eye to it in the past, and when the stories come out from the women's teams, everybody is shocked at the stories, but then nothing actually happens in the aftermath of that. What we're saying is it's going to be codified that there's equality. When the senior team needs the main pitch, the senior team gets the main pitch, not the under 14 boys team over the women's team, the way it would be at the moment. And I'm not sure that everybody around the country is just ready for that yet. And I mean, tough shit really, but they're the stories that we have to listen, take on board, and then move past.
Yeah, no, that's exactly it. That's the day-to-day barrier that will be struck. And you know, as I say, I'm not claiming to be perfect. This happens in clubs up and down the country all the time. And even in our own club last year, I was coaching an under 15 team, and the senior camogie team were due to come on the pitch after us. Now, I think the senior camogie team thought I was trying to take over the pitch at the time, but I was very much intending to be finished in time for their session. But there's that immediate kind of fear that because it's happened before, well, the pitch is going to be taken on us, or you know, we're supposed to have this pitch and we're not getting it when we should. So there just needs to be clear communication and clear. I suppose it's going to take direction, and it's going to take good leadership at the top of each club, but also that, you know, all bodies recognise that if the senior camogie team are due to train and the senior camogie team are committing and are bringing numbers to training, that they deserve to have the pitch as good as the senior hurling team would or the senior football team would. you know. And it's just, it's as you say, it's going to take a change in attitude. It's going to take a change in thinking for people, which won't happen quickly. But I've seen it in Leafs Club in a hand there, where, you know, they still mightn't always have the top pitch or the main pitch, but they've won a county championship since the men have won a county championship, and they got fantastic support in the club, you know, and a lot of the male players were there supporting them on the day and throughout the process. So I think it's, as things like that happen, I think more and more clubs will start to buy in, and more people will start to see the benefit of it and follow that lead, I suppose. Yeah,
it'll be transformative. I mean, that's the as I said, at the end of this process, something magical is going to happen, where you have one of the most important cultural and grassroots organisations in the country recognising the power to be an agent of change. I do want to briefly ask you to put on your hurling and football hats at the moment. Do you consider yourself a hurler or a footballer now, considering the late flowering of your career as a club hurler, as what a lot of people would know you as for the last couple of years?
Yeah, I'm very much a football man still. Yeah, no, my home club is actually hurling in Ballyea, so I played hurling all the way up along, but I suppose we only really saw success in the last 7 or 8 years at senior level. So, no, I'm still very much a football man. I'm involved in football here in the school, and at the moment, I haven't even gone back club hurling this year. I'm just club football at the moment. We had a little baby boy just over 3 months ago, so he's keeping us busy at the moment. So, club hurling will go on the back burner before football will go on the back burner.
Okay, fair enough. Then that is a definite identifier. Tommy was telling us we need to ask you about Shane Meehan, who is also a dual star. He's flying for the hurlers, but captain the minor footballer, still only 19, so already getting rave reviews. Where's he going to end up, do you think?
Shane looks... Just lost you there for a second again, Joe. Sorry, but Shane is a class act. And I suppose I saw him first playing with the Clare minor footballers, as you say. And you're looking to go to a match, and you want to see the most exciting players. You want to see the skills of the game being displayed.
We've just lost the line to St. Flannan's there this morning, but sure, look, we were nearly finished anyway, so we'll say thanks very much to Gary Brennan for his contribution this morning. You should read that piece in the Examiner. It's definitely thought-provoking, and really the merger just needs to happen. They need to tell everybody what they're going to do, have some consultations about what the outcomes need to be, and then get on with it and say, here's how we're going to audit as it goes along, here's how we're going to make sure that it's successful, here's a hotline for anybody who wants to report misogynistic dinosaurs.
And it shouldn't be that hard, and as a result of that, it should be something that is noticeable in its change very quickly, and not necessarily overnight, but pretty close to it. Some of these, when you're talking about things that involve common sense, but that can also make a big difference, the change can happen very, very quickly, even though it feels like that there's a lot of hoops to jump through. It kind of feels as if that suits the old narrative that this thing is complicated. Yeah, I hold no candle for any of the politicians who've ever been in charge of the departments of sport, but reminding everybody about the rules that are in place to get government funding, and in terms of female representation throughout your organisation, not just the tokenistic stuff that you can do at board level. Stop the funding for the RFU, stop the funding for the FAI, stop the funding for the GAA until they get their houses in order when it comes to proper integration and pushing women's sport forward. And in fairness to them, they say they're going to do that. Yeah. So time to put up or shut up for everybody. Yeah, and I don't see why they wouldn't do that. If you're being an unbelievable cynic about it as well. It doesn't make any sense politically for them to not do that. They want to be the face of a positive news story, and this is going to lead to far more positive reflections on Irish sport, you'd like to think, over the next little while. Yeah, again, potentially transformative for all of these organisations. A reminder, OTB AM brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. It's 8:32. Great show, lads. Everton fan here, living in Greenville, South Carolina. I'm either up late or early. Either way, toffees suck, and I'm preparing for relegation and not being back for a bit. Great show, says Dave F. So he's with you. He thinks they're going down. Yeah, but he's got I presume everywhere in South Carolina is kind of slightly idyllic as a place to live. If you're on the beach, it's kind of supposed to be sensational. I've never been, but I definitely want to go. So it's not too bad.
It's definitely up late though.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Like, I mean, what has you up till 3 o'clock on a Tuesday morning?
Everton fans wanted Lampard because he shouted at Klopp once, says Noel. Do you remember that? Giving it a big one because you won the league once. Yeah, in the Champions League.
Yeah, that was fun. And Klopp just telling him to calm down. Calm down. You know when like somebody says, just calm down, and it just makes you angrier and angrier and angrier. You're in a bad mood, Frank. It just makes him in a worse mood.
Yeah. Great interview. The success of the male game is in part due to the standards based on these advantages. Every team should get 50-50 of what the senior, junior can afford at that level. Ronan says, any chance to do something on the MLB? It's becoming completely unwatchable as a sport with the owners holding the players to ransom. I haven't been following the potential for the lockout and strike and the absence of a deal. Have you been following enough of it?
Not really. I know that the Players Association have rejected a recent proposal from the league. But it's not the first time the sport has had to deal with a lockout, and this one seems pretty poisonous and doesn't seem like they're going to get past this impasse anytime soon.
They seem to be managing decline in baseball, don't they?
Like they seem to be managing what?
Decline. Like
yeah.
It's going to, where does it stop? Where does it? Because it got better to watch when they were able to show you where the strike zone was.
Yeah.
But I still think that the strike zone is an agreed virtual space. It's a bit like the metaverse. It's a bit like NFTs. You have to accept that this is important for us all to agree on it. And I mean, baseball it was ultimately, if the ball goes in anywhere in this area, it's a strike. But if it goes over here, it's not a strike. I was like, how do you know?
It just is.
The big guy strike zone is better. So why don't they just get a lot of little guys who's like, that's outside my strike zone. I'm sorry, I couldn't hit it.
Well, there you go. Maybe you missed
got the little short stubby arms. I'm like,
you missed a life as an MLB
Tyrannosaurus Rex.
Yeah. Did I see somewhere that there's talk of putting more teams into the playoffs as well in the MLB, which at face value I'm like, you have 1 billion games in the regular season. To devalue the fact that you've got 1 billion games even further probably wouldn't be an amazing idea.
Get through.
I'm not sure though, is that part of the current lockout that's actually maybe a more lucrative thing for players or something. Again, I haven't been following it closely enough to say for sure.
All right, at 8:35 we'll run you through the sports pages. It's fairly uniformity this morning. It seems genuine. That's Matt Williams and Jerry Thornley talking about Rassie Rasmus's denial that the video was leaked on purpose. I'm not sure. Jamie Carragher gives damning verdict of Seamus Coleman. His days are numbered, says Pat Nevin on Seamus Coleman. Poor Seamus. FIFA relaxes rules to allow foreign players leave clubs in Ukraine. And Frank O'Farrell did an interview with OTB back in 2009. If you want to hear the voice of the former Manchester United manager, who of course passed away yesterday at the age of 94. Ron the legend, missing Cristiano, is facing Old Trafford exit. And Rashford also open to leaving United.
More leaks.
Ron the legend, end. They want you to mispronounce the word so the headline works.
Yeah, it's the end of the legend.
It is the end of the legend. Kane the legend. Harry ahead of Henry. Harry Kane top Thierry Henry in the all-time Premier scoring charts. On a horror night for Frank Lampard. And Eddie Jones started the mind games early by saying Ireland are brilliant. That's an unusual Eddie Jones trick. Normally it's like a different way. The leaks, it was Fabrizio Romano who had the story yesterday first, and everybody has picked up on it. Question mark. Frustrated Rashford wants guarantees over his future. Frank gets spanked. Okay. Kenny set to agree deal, it says. This is Paul Lennon's story. Stephen Kenny will sign his contract extension as Ireland manager within the next few days. And it's planned that a formal announcement confirming the deal will be made by the FA and Kenny early next week at the latest. The Ireland boss is scheduled to name a squad for the end of month friendlies against Belgium and Lithuania on Friday week. Talks have substantially concluded to the satisfaction of both sides. So, what are we? March? When did we start calling for this? Last August? Sure, look, they're getting there. Things are progressing. We're moving forward.
Because I think maybe that was one of the question marks really around that deal, was would he get to see out the Euro 2024 qualification campaign, and I think that is going to be the case.
Is that confirmed in that piece?
That's what it says in the piece.
Yeah, okay. It's unclear if Kenny will be able to confirm the appointment before Belgium and Lithuania play. He's still seeking a replacement for Anthony Barry, and yeah, it's the most obvious decision and the correct decision. Rashford considers future as United slide into turmoil as the Telegraph. Premier League and EFL pull plug on Russian TV contracts. As the sanctions continue. Question mark. United fears for Rashford as he demands answers over his future. Like, they're going to do nothing until the new manager comes in and decides whether or not he wants Rashford. The new manager might go, I'm not sure, and they'll let his contract run down. But they apparently have they can trigger an extra year in it, so it's less of a Pogba situation.
Okay, I didn't know that there was the extra year.
Well, it's reported. Who's reporting that?
Yeah.
Is that a pro? Oh no, we've got the situation. We're managing it very well. Thanks very much for your story. We actually have an extra year there. And players like, well, it's probably an extra year that we both need to agree on.
Yeah.
So maybe you don't really have that extra year if I don't agree. But it's there anyway. Dreadful Everton in grave danger. The other thing, like, is the England goalkeeper any good? Was he not at fault for the second goal?
Oh, well, 100% he was.
So, like, what? You know,
he made a couple of good late saves, but it's like, I mean,
it's 5-0. I'm playing great at 5-0.
Yeah, it was the ball squirted under his body for the second. Like, it was a howler.
It was, yeah. So, the Mail. Worst ever. Lampard's in big trouble as sizzling Spurs go goal crazy. Is it the worst ever start for Everton? 28 games in, so it's not really a start. But yeah. And heat on as Jones says Ireland are favourites. Do we really is that really? Eddie Jones has this power over us that he says, "Oh, you guys are favourites." We're like, "Oh no, Eddie, we're favourites." You found our kryptonite, telling us we're favourites.
I'm not sure about you. I woke up pretty proud this morning. Eddie Jones said yesterday that we are literally the most cohesive side in the world. I woke up feeling Irish and cohesive as hell. Feels good to be cohesive.
Yeah. What does it mean in your day-to-day life? How do you take it into your interactions with other human beings?
Everything is just so much synergy, and everything is so synchronised, and yeah, being cohesive is good.
All right. OTB AM is brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. It is 8:40. We're turning our attention to the Women's National League, and I'm delighted to say the Shelbourne captain, Pearl Slattery, is with us. Pearl, good morning to you. How you getting on?
Morning, lads. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, no worries. You got the start of the league campaign off with a win and a goal, so you must have been pretty happy at the end of last week.
Yeah, look, delighted with the win. It's always, I feel, we always speak as a group that, even last season and same this season, it's always important to start well. And just, look, getting the win, it's not going to be perfect on the first day by any means. Just once you win, and look, when you look back at it now, 1-0, 3 points, clean sheet, really happy with it. Yeah, delighted now to look forward now to this weekend against Wexford.
The end of last season was so spectacular and wild and bizarre and brilliant from your guys' perspective. What was the off-season like? How do you try and take some of the feeling that you had on the last day of last season and bottle it and bring it with you? Can you do that, or is last season completely finished and it totally irrelevant to this year? What's the truth to that?
Yeah, I think, look, at the end of the season, you're obviously, after the cup final and stuff, you kind of sit back, don't you, as a player? We've all done it, and I suppose just look back on the season, and I found myself, through the month of November, December, just thinking that actually really happened. Sometimes you'd be sitting there going back to it. It's just a really special night in Talca Park. It's probably the best, night I've ever had in football, and a lot of the girls would say that. But, once you enjoy Christmas and that with your family, and you go back down a pre-season yourself, and you come into pre-season, especially now that we've started the season, it was a wonderful night. We were delighted to win, the first title of 5 years for the club. But it's a brand new season now, so it's gone, and there's going to be a lot of pressure on us this season now as champions. So look, we'll have to be on our game and every weekend. And look, we'll always compete. That's all you want. But last year is definitely gone now. Look, as I said, already the first game of the new season's gone already. The games are going to come thick and fast, and the league itself last season was really competitive, and I think this year is going to be even more so. So, looking forward. But yeah, look, that was a special night, but it is gone now, and we're just trying to look forward.
Do you feel that there's an extra pep in your step this season? Is it nonsense to say that you can actually feel like champions when you're out there?
I don't know. I don't know if you can feel like champions, but I feel, there's an expectation on us now to go out and try to do well every game. Look, we've done that every other year anyway, but I think definitely now, every weekend, because in previous years when if P-Mount had won it, look, you always want to be the champions. You always want to try take over them and stuff. So I think other teams will be like that with us. We kind of have a target on our back now. So, but look, I've always said it in interviews. I feel like that every weekend. As a Shells player, I suppose every team would like to beat us. Similar to us though, every weekend you want to go into a game and win. But I do think there's a little bit more now. That target is on your back as champions, and we know, look, every game, as I said, is that the league has just gone so competitive now. You look at the game the weekend with Bows, it was 0-0 until the 70th odd minute. Fair play to Bows, they made it difficult for us. They're well set up. So look, every team every year is improving, and we need to make sure now, as ourselves, when you become champions, it's very easy to drop standards and think, and I'll be the driving force, and Noel and the staff and the players, in fairness themselves, make sure that doesn't happen to us, and we keep going. Look, we'll take it week by week. We won't look beyond Wexford this week. We full concentration on Bows this weekend, and as I said, you're delighted with the win, the 3 points and the clean sheet, and now we move on to Wexford.
I just wanted to generally ask you about the explosion in women's football in Ireland over the last period of time. You are part of that. You're in your day job working for the FAI. You're essentially involved, and you see how the game is growing. What more do we need to do as a country to make sure that growth continues properly, and that because we've just been talking all morning about the rugby team and the situation with regards to the GAA and the merger happening there. The FAI are at a different they're coming at it from a different angle. So how do you make sure that we build on the popularity of the game, and that anybody who wants to play is given the opportunity to play?
Yeah, I think you look around the world, and I always say this: the potential for growth in the women's game is massive, and it's in a really good place, I think, around the world, but more so in our country. You could see the last few years, even in the league, the development of that. The crowds we're getting at the games, like you should have seen the crowd again at Tolka this weekend, which is brilliant to see, because we haven't really seen crowds like that in the Women's National League. We've went from 30 to 40 people at our games now to a few hundred, which is brilliant. But I always say as well, in the FAI, we've a strategic plan now there in place that we'll be following for the next few years, and one of the pillars is women's football, and it's brilliant now that there's we can really focus on that. But I just think, look, we have to continue more of the same, and rather, it's in a really good place, I think, women's football in this country now. But it's important we don't stop and say we're in a really good place, and that we keep driving it forward, we keep going. Look, you look at how well the women's national team are doing, the deals that have come in there, the equal pay, the sponsorship, the buzz around that. I was talking to somebody the other day where, I obviously worked with the FEI a few years ago. We used to give out comps to those games. Now, they're selling out, and people are buying the tickets, which is brilliant. And I just think in terms of women's national team now, if we can qualify for a major tournament, I think that would really take women's football to the next level here. I just think we need to get to a major tournament, and it's definitely possible. So I'm really excited over the next few months to see how that goes. And then obviously, in terms of the Women's National League, I think it's just getting bigger and bigger every year. And that's all you want every year, just for it to continue to grow. You look at TG Carr coming in, the sponsorships, all that sort of stuff. You even see that air game the weekend, RTE were there, the news, there was highlights, all that. It's, just about seeing it as much as possible, that young girls around the country, the next generation, could see what is actually possible if you want to play football in this country. And as I said, the development, and we have to remember where we were a few years ago as well. So it's brilliant where we are, but it's important now that we keep pushing forward, and that we don't just settle for where it is now, and that we keep driving the standards and keep wanting to develop, and just getting better and better every year, and giving young girls around the country, in wherever capacity you want to get involved in the game, whether it's playing, referee and volunteering, coach, and all that sort of stuff in terms of the women's game, that there's opportunities there, Am
I right in saying you went to college in the States? Was that on a football scholarship?
I was, yeah. I was over there for about 3.5 years, and look, at the time I just wanted to go live in another country, experience it. I was playing 2 games a week. We played a Wednesday night and Saturday. We were training every day. It was a brilliant experience. Because
there's in Ireland we sometimes are delighted for people who get to go away, and sometimes we're like, I can't believe these people are leaving. Certainly the kids who go off and play Australian rules, it's always a double-edged sword for the counties who feel like they've brought the young players through. But your experience seems to have been, this was life-changing and great. And I kind of feel like, if you're a kid, 15, 16, and good enough at football to go off and get a scholarship or go off and make your life as a professional somewhere else, maybe you'll come back, maybe you won't. But either way, that's kind of part of, that's part of the sport. So I just think that it's an opportunity that's open to a load of people that maybe wouldn't be open to them if it wasn't for sport.
Yeah, look, it was a brilliant experience for me. I think it really was life-changing for me, just in terms of fitness. I would have thought I would have been fit going to America, and over there it's a completely different ball game. You know, they're unbelievable athletes, and I just feel, you know, that's probably when my career turned. I went up a level fitness-wise and stuff, and learned so much over there. So when I did come home and the Women's National League was starting, I felt, you know, I had just took it up a level fitness-wise and just looking after myself, and I learned all that through the States. But I think, look, I speak to a lot of young girls and stuff, or people think about going abroad. It's, you know, on the individual if they want to go to States, or some people who are lucky enough around their league or in Ireland to go to England. You know, the most important thing is, you know, that once they go, and if they're good enough, that they're not kind of forgotten about. And look, I'm bringing it back to the women's national team. You look at Roma, who went across the States. It's been great now to see her that she is over in the States, she is in college, she is living her dream, but she's also still getting called back into the women's national team, which is massive, like a lot of the girls that go to England and stuff. So yeah, look, I think opportunities like that, if that's what you want to do as an individual, you know, you definitely should do it.
Has the fitness caught up here compared to the States?
Has it which?
Has the fitness programs caught up in comparison to your experience in the States?
Yeah, definitely. Should have been nearly 10 years ago now I was in the States. I just mean, as like myself, as an individual, you know, I suppose the Women's National League had really started then. You know, the education, this is what I always say to a lot of young girls as well, like the education they get now in terms of the game, football-wise, fitness-wise, nutrition-wise, it's just a different level altogether, you know. And I suppose when I was here and then I moved abroad for the 3.5 years, that was my biggest learning curve. I think, like, you know, the level was good, and I always felt I could compete as a footballer, but my fitness and, you know, how you recover and all that just went up a level. And I remember a few people saying that to me when I came home, that it just, you know, transformed fitness wise and, you know, just looking after myself. And look, if you're training every day, playing games twice a week, that'll help you naturally. But it was just, you know, the pre-season over there was just, Jesus, lads, it was very, very tough, you know. And you look at it now, we were probably overrun a little bit, but it just prepped me then when I come back to the Women's National League fitness-wise and being able to compete and play at the Women's National League level then, you know.
Probably, you just explain for everybody what it is your day job is with the FEI. It's to develop the women's game specifically, is it?
Yeah, so I'm, you know, the FEI obviously has went through a new restructure the last, you know, 2 years. So I would have been a development officer, like, just involved in the women's game actually on South Dublin, and then with the restructure people inside kind of moved, and my boss had moved on and his role came up, and I'm now women's football programme coordinator in our grassroots department. So I work with a lot of, you know, the regions with our own staff, just trying to develop the game, grow the game through participation, but also retain it. So we'd have like a grassroots pathway, a menu of programmes, if you like, for clubs and leagues around the country. So we start at that 5 to 8 year old age group, and it's Disney Playmakers. And then we have 3 or 4 programmes after that. The Soccer Sisters will obviously run over the Easter camp. So I kind of head them up and work with, as I said earlier, the FEI, we've kind of split the country now into 8 regions. We've 8 regional managers and 8 programme coordinators, and I'm one of them. I'm the programme coordinator for women's football. So I would link in with a lot of those regions and the clubs and other stakeholders around the country, just to try to grow the game and retain players throughout. So look, I'm very lucky. Obviously the women's game is a big passion of mine. I played it, and you know, I volunteered for a lot of years, and I volunteered just to give back, because the game has given me so much. And then I end up getting a job in the FEI, and I'm there now 6 years. Very grateful to the FEI. You know, I work with football every day. I'm very, very happy, and it's a role I'm really enjoying. And look, the FEI have kind of always supported me as well. Being a women's national league player, I'm able to do both, and sometimes it can be tough. You're so busy and trying to balance both, but I've been very, very lucky, and I'm really enjoying the job. I'm only in it since last January, so I'm in it over a year and a bit. So I'm still learning, but I have to say I'm loving it.
We know the facilities are obviously an issue right around the country, and that's a separate kind of day's work. But in terms of encouraging people to get out and coach and get involved, is that almost as important in terms of the player pathway and keeping players involved, is that they have enough coaches and they have enough supports when they're going and showing up for training?
Yeah, look, it's massive, isn't it? I think in the women's game over the years, all you want is that, you know, quality, the respect, to be treated the same, you know, to be, you know, to have the best coaches, to have the best facilities, and, you know, the women's game or your team not just being, you know, an extra add-on. And that's where I really think, you know, what's changed around this country now. The women's game is really getting that respect, I feel. You know, clubs now are coming in, you know, we see it in the FEI now. Clubs are just, being bombarded with, female teams, young girls teams, but they're putting a lot of time into it now, resources, people within the club who actually want to really do it and do it well, getting that equal time slot, getting half a pitch, getting a full pitch. And that's the way it should be, and that's all you want as a female player. And look, even if it's playing, coaching, volunteering, wherever it is, that the opportunity's there, the same opportunity, and that you're getting them because you're good enough, and it's kind of forgetting about that female and male thing,
100%. Pearl, great to have you with us this morning. Best of luck. Cheers.
Thank you. Cheers.
It's Pearl Slattery there, plays for Shelbourne, obviously works for the FAI as well. If you want to get involved in the conversation this morning, 0879 180 180 is the WhatsApp number. OTB AM is brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. John Duggan, good morning to you.
Jarno, and how are we doing?
Pretty good. How are you?
Not bad.
Life is pretty good for you at the moment.
Well, yeah, okay.
So, or does virtual insanity just cover over for a dreadful life or something?
Well, I was thinking more Spurs and virtual insanity.
Oh yeah, and
I don't want to, tell everybody I'm a great fella. So you guys can do
that. Well, you missed yesterday, obviously, when Owen kind of vicariously takes credit for your virtual insanity because he backs it.
Yeah,
he's like, I won at the weekend.
Yeah.
So.
Well, the more people that are involved in the virtual insanity community, the better. So Owen has been welcomed into the pews of the congregation, absolutely with open arms, and is taking the communion every week.
A WhatsApp group of mine gets a text usually around 11 o'clock every Saturday night being like, Don Juggan's tips, guys.
Don
Juggan is what your pseudonym in our group, and nobody else has got on, so they're pretty annoyed, I think. But
yeah, it's going well. Ryan Brem 66-1. Not too bad in the Puerto Rico Open. I did say it was the bonus content last week, folks, if you read it on the OTB Sports app or on otbsports.com. So look, the Arnold Palmer Invitational was a little bit unlucky. Matt Fitzpatrick was the headline tip, was one place out of the places. One shot out of the places on tied for ninth, but profit 23.5% so far.
Not bad, not bad at all. And before the weekend you would have said Rory, but sure, look, Rory.
Well, yeah, it's worrying for him ahead of the Masters, lads, because I don't see him moaning about the course to be the right approach. Scotty Scheffler hung around and won. And Scotty Scheffler said on Sunday he didn't have his best, and he just hung around and he won. And that's what you need to do sometimes. You need to play the percentages, and I felt there was too much emotion in what Rory was doing. And not for the first time in the last 6 months. We saw a couple of tournaments in Dubai where it just didn't go right for him. We had the rip shirt incident, and then we had the way Victor Hovland kind of just took him out of it at the Dubai Desert Classic when he hit it into the water. And
what was he doing ripping his shirt? I mean, I know he's like, it's not a big deal, stop going on about it, but what was he doing?
He was angry.
What was he doing, ripping his own shirt?
He was angry. I mean, there was nothing else to rip. He maybe didn't have like a wedge to smash.
But the snap wedge, the ripped shirt, that's not the Zen master that he portrays himself to be.
No, I think
Have you lads ever smashed
my
anything?
Own clothes?
Have you ever smashed anything, or in Aston Villa getting beaten, or Kildare getting beaten, Ger?
I mean, a long time ago. A long time ago. But you grow out of these things, right?
Owen?
No, not really. I used it was a happy moment. I think I dislocated my jaw once because I opened my mouth so wide after I was at the Emirates. I think Arsenal had just scored a late winner against Aston Villa.
This is not true.
I did, yeah.
What?
Yeah. I felt a big crack in my mouth, and it was sore for a long time.
Did you go to the NHS?
No, I didn't. I was like, it's fine.
You dislocated your jaw smiling so much at Arsenal goal.
Yeah, I think I was just like let out a roar, and then
it just got stuck.
Wow.
Yeah,
okay.
it got opened up quite wide. But other than that, like, I mean, there's no that was for positive reasons.
Yeah,
I've never. I'm a lover, not a fighter. I wouldn't really throw anything or smashing a golf club were I to be a top class golf player.
Okay. And have you never been that happy again in your life? It turns out.
No.
Right.
Yeah, that was it. I used up all my serotonin there and then.
Okay.
None left. But
the dislocatable celebratory jaw.
Yeah.
That's
Owen's glass jaw.
I've never heard of this.
No, I thought that would be a common occurrence for many people. It's strange things happen when good things happen in Spurs. I don't know. I didn't think it was that a spectacular thing, to be honest. But yeah, no. The answer to your question is no. Nothing in anger. But like I'm not overly. Like, I think what you can read into Rory is that he has, as you say, proclaimed himself to be...
I forgot we were talking about Rory there,
the stoic individual. And that this does fly in the face a little bit of that. But I wouldn't be overly worried about a professional sports person being angry with their own performance. That's
just a strange thing to rip your own clothes. Maybe when you are that ripped, you're like, I'm going to show everybody how ripped I am. All those hours in the gym need to be.
You got plenty of free clothes coming your way as well. Like, it's not.
It wasn't about that. It's more anyway. Also going on is Spurs are good at football again. Good, bad, good.
Don't play twice in a week, I think, is the thing about Spurs at the moment. Maybe they're being really put under the gun in training by Antonio Conte, because they've had a couple of flat performances against Burnley and Middlesbrough in between 3 very good performances, scoring 12 goals against Manchester City, Leeds and Everton. Now, Everton were terrible last night. Absolutely terrible. But it was encouraging to see Matt Doherty.
Very encouraging.
Yeah, at wing back. And he says it's his reason why he's back at Spurs.
Yeah, look, obviously that position I love. I think I said before, that's the reason why I'm at Tottenham. I was playing that position at Wolves, and was managing to get in at the back stick and create chances and score goals. So hopefully I can keep it up.
Don't know what Jose was doing and playing him at back four, but he's already got ahead of Emerson in the team. So Sessegnon's got ahead of Reguilon and Doherty's got ahead of Emerson, and Antonio Conte praised him in his press conference last night, which was great to see. A little bit of a trickier night for Seamus Coleman, who was kind of caught for the first goal, which Michael Keane put into his own net, and Everton's back four really struggled. Didn't have much protection either. And Frank Lampard has ascribed individual errors to the Toffees' defeat.
The main issues tonight for me were football issues of mistakes and bad defending for the goals. It's quite clear. So and it wasn't just the defensive situations at the top end of the pitch. We didn't show enough, and that was from the early part of the game. Even when we were in a relative control, we still weren't looking like we were threatening their backline enough. And Tottenham, the way they play, are very organised.
Up to you though, Frank. Do you sort it out?
Yeah, it is, isn't it? And I'm not sure he's going to be able to do it.
The lucky thing for him is that Leeds are also in trouble. Can Jesse Marsh turn that around quickly, defensively for Leeds? Also, Burnley do find it hard to win, as difficult as they are sometimes to beat. They're still in the drop zone. Everton have games in hand on both. Brentford, I think, will probably be okay with Ivan Toney back in the team and scoring again. So it's going to be fascinating, but it's going to go down to the wire, lads.
Who do you want to go down?
Me?
Yeah. I think that it's time for Everton to go down. They've had their
1951.
Time. They've had their time.
1951, the last time Everton were. There was a Freudian slip.
Was it actually 1951?
What?
Sorry.
Yeah, it was just I had a Mayo thing in my head there. The last time Everton were relegated from the top flight of an English league. Who do I want to go down? Burnley, but only because I predicted they would at the start of the year.
See, now they're fighting the way they're fighting, and they get good results against the good teams. And Sean Dyche is a miracle worker. Like, I would like to see Sean Dyche at a club that has some money to see what he could do.
Yeah.
Because I don't think he's wedded to caveman football because he believes that that's the only way to play football. I think I don't know.
The thing about Everton is I'm kind of conflicted in that I really like, having been at Goodison Park, I really like the vibe. I like the community aspect of Everton. I think they're a really big club for the community in Liverpool. But you could do MBAs or MBSs on university business studies on how not to run a business, which is Everton has been chronically run by horrific decisions to spend £500 million and have their club in this situation.
Yeah. Yeah, they're like a lower rent Manchester United with the profligacy and waste.
Yeah, it's just awful business practice from like technical directors or anybody in an executive level, the transfer policy, the whole thing. And it's underplayed in football because clubs, just because they pump money in, seem to be beyond scrutiny of that kind of thing. But it's shocking. Liverpool, on the other hand, a well-run club, 2-0 up against Inter ahead of the second leg of their Champions League last 16 match tonight. Thiago and Joel Matip might return. Bayern Munich and Salzburg tied at a goal apiece ahead of their game. Nottingham Forest into the FA Cup quarter-finals. They will play Liverpool now after a 2-1 win over Huddersfield. There's championship action tonight, 6 matches involving the leaders, Fulham as well, going to Swansea. Blackburn Rovers hoping for promotion push versus Millwall, Barnsley, Stoke, Bournemouth, Peterborough, Coventry, Luton and Sheffield United, Middlesbrough. Mickey Moran, according to the Irish News, has stepped down as manager of Kilcoo the Down club that won the All-Ireland under his guidance there last month against Kilmacud Crokes in extra time. So that is disappointing for Kilcoo, but he did his job there. Sad news about Frank O'Farrell, the Cork native, 94 years of age, has passed away. The only Irishman to ever manage Manchester United, came in permanently after Matt Busby, and it was difficult with Busby still at the club to put his own stamp on it. Only lasted 18 months, but also led Leicester to an FA Cup final in 1969, managed Iran in the mid-70s, played for Cork United, West Ham and Preston. I'm still in shock as well, lads, about Shane Warne. That was just awful news a few days ago, and Ricky Ponting did a very nice piece with the ICC YouTube channel on his friend and his former teammate. It's a tough watch, but it's worth it, of memories of a great Australian who was a rock star for international sport.
100%. So we're going to hear from Matt Williams on Shane Warne in just a moment. Actually, the next episode of Virtual Insanity is on tomorrow.
It is the Players' Championship, lads. I don't know if you enjoy that tournament this week. It's one of the best spectacles, because you can remember that Island Green, the 17th, with the water, and a real test of nerves. And I think it's a very equitable tournament in that you've had some strange winners in terms of unheralded players, Fred Funk, Stephen Ames and Craig Perks, to the other extent where you've had Tiger Woods, Phil Mickelson, Rory McIlroy all winning it. It's very much a level playing field. I think Shane Lowry is coming into the tournament in great form. We can't forget him. It's going to be a wet and windy week in Florida at Sawgrass. But yeah, I've already made my decisions and I'll reveal them tomorrow.
Excellent. All right, looking forward to that. otbsports.com/virtual insanity. That is John Duggan for you today. You can read more from John on otbsports.com, and you can subscribe to the breakfast briefing every day wherever you get your podcasts. Subscribe to the highlights feed on the OTB Sports app. Here's what's on OTB Sports Radio today. OTB Gold is the life and times of Johnny Kilbane.
He would have been called Kilbane, wouldn't he?
Dadcast at 3. Career retrospective is Andy Moran at 4. OTB Gold tonight at 6 is Barry Ryan, and the show is live with Joe from 7 this evening. Up next, we're going to hear Matt Williams paying tribute to Shane Warne, and we're back talking football with Phil Egan after that.
OTB AM on OTB Sports Radio, Ireland's first and only sports radio station.
The Six Nations on OTB.
Can you come on and talk about Ireland's attack shape? It's really exciting. I don't remember ever getting that call 15 years ago.
It's spinning! It's spinning! Go on, Ireland! I've never seen a team like Ireland before.
Excuse me? That's a bit offensive to us because we're Welsh. You could just keep your own opinion to yourself.
The Six Nations on OTB. Don't miss a moment of the action. Subscribe to the OTB Rugby podcast feed now.
With prices from only €289 for fully comprehensive car insurance, everyone's making the jump to getsetgo.ie. New business policies only. Prices subject to minimum premiums. T's and C's apply. MCL Insurance Services Limited Trading is getsetgo.ie is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
OTB AM.
With Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs razor with exfoliating bar.
He's the equivalent of George Best to cricket. He was a man with God-given talents that could spin a cricket ball faster and more effective than any person ever to live, and he could land it on a 5-cent piece. He revived the art of leg spin, which is where the ball comes out the back of your little finger, which is just impossible. I couldn't even bowl it. My grandfather could bowl. I couldn't do it. And no one could do it since the great Tiger O'Reilly in the 30s. And somewhere Warne turned up and just revolutionised the game, won these impossible matches with blonde hair, and he's a little bit tubby. He was charismatic. He didn't care about people. He was so competitive. And he just won games. And then he lived this life out of where he made all these errors. There were sex scandals. He got banned for a year for taking an illegal substance that you buy at a chemist. It was a diuretic. He fell in love with Liz Hurley, I'm the superstar model and movie star. And all along, all those errors and problems that were in his life, he owned them. And I think we all loved him more for it. But he was simply the greatest cricketer the world's seen since Bradman, probably only behind Bradman. There's one or two other people that could get into the argument. But then the other part with Warne is he just brought out a biography, and there was a documentary done on him, and basically just saying all those things, that he was owning all the problems in his life. He'd rebuilt the relationship with his children that he felt he lost through embarrassing them through a lot of the things that in his life that he wasn't proud of. And there were a lot of them that he said, including the affairs and things like this. And he just seemed to be back in a great place and enjoying, the place in Australian society that he had earned when this tragedy struck. And it tells you about the man. From Kenny Dalglish to the Prime Minister of Australia, the Prime Minister of England, the Prime Minister of Pakistan, all coming out making statements. Gary Lineker and his great opponent, Michael Vaughan, who was the captain of England when Warney ripped them apart, was in tears, as were his teammates. It's just a Shakespearean tragedy that you just could not. If you wrote the book about it, it's too unbelievable to believe.
As a brilliant tribute, you've got me a lot more interested in the Shane Warne piece that we should do very shortly. In fact, might get you in on it as part of it. Did you say there the leg spin ball? Because I'm not an aficionado. I should be upfront about saying. So did you say there that it was a thing in the 30s and disappeared from the game effectively until Warne popped up in the 80s or 90s to revitalise it?
Yeah, pretty much. There's people who love their cricket will know that there were leg spinners. But there was one great leg spinner. I got a ball here. I knew you'd ask me this question. The ball comes out behind your little finger. So you just don't spin the ball. The ball exits your hand behind your little finger. So you're spinning like that. And remember, you've got to keep your arm straight as you come over. So your elbow, your wrist is bent and the ball comes out the back here. Like, it's just so ungainly. And there was this genius bowler called Bill O'Reilly, obviously Irish-Australian. Tiger O'Reilly was the same era as Bradman through the 30s, regarded as the greatest of all time. And he said someone else would come. But the art was lost. It was over. There were leg spinners, but they were rubbish. People had belled them all around the park. And Warne came out and not only brought it back, he was devastating.
It's Matty Williams last night on Monday Night Rugby, taking a little digression to explain the art of the leg spin and his love for Shane Warne, which really came across in that piece. We put that up in the highlights as well, the full thing. If you want to have a bit more of it, go and dig into it. OTB AM is brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. Some comments for you. David's been back in touch to say baseball is a herding of the masses to 6 hours of light beer and crappy music, and shame of rounders that they get paid millions for. And I grew up in Newbridge. South Carolina is pretty decent. Oh, it sounds heavenly. Thanks very much for staying up for us this evening. Bobby says Spurs were great last night, especially Kane, Doherty and Kulievski. Huge game on Saturday. It's Tottenham line is getting old. 20 years later, we beat them 6-1 in this fixture last season. It's Bobby, our resident Spurs fan.
Yeah.
Getting pissed off with it's Spursy lads. It's Tottenham.
I thought Roy Keane was going to go there on Sunday because he did mention what their next fixture was for Manchester United, but even he couldn't bring himself to say it.
Not anymore.
Not anymore.
Why is there never discussion by sports journalists around the UFC when it is pushing women's sport better than most? Asks Michael. Well, we did have the two combatants who were in the not the ring.
At the Tree Arena?
In the cage.
The octagon.
Oh, sorry.
Thanks. Phil's here to save us, yeah. Lots of LGFA clubs are combos of different GA clubs, says Paul. Healthy collaboration between local GA clubs will be the key to making LGFA merger a success. Yeah, I mean, divisional teams might be the way forward for strong women's teams, and then they'll get to share in the facilities from both clubs. And it'll improve both clubs. It's like there's definitely ways forward here until they're both ready to have their own teams. Anyway, Phil, good morning to you. How are you?
How are you doing, lads?
The return of the Champions League this evening. On the face of it, too, should be fairly straightforward results that we expect to go through. But is there any way that Bayern Munich might not go through tonight?
It'd be a major shock. I know in the first leg, Salzburg obviously were a goal up and they had a chance to go 2-0 up and they missed it, and obviously Bayern got their equaliser. You'd imagine Bayern will just be too good for them at home. In terms of the Liverpool game, the fact that there's no away goals. Can you see Inter winning by 3 goals tonight? It's very unlikely. I think Liverpool will try and get obviously the first goal is going to decide a lot, but if Liverpool do get the first goal, then I think Klopp would like to be in a position maybe where he'll be able to use, well, he has his 5 subs, which he'll probably use, and that's pretty much what won him the first leg, those changes in the second half at the San Siro 3 weeks ago. And he talked about it yesterday as well, saying that it's great that you can use your 5 subs. Obviously, it's something that he keeps going on about, that the Premier League haven't allowed this, and he'd have one eye on the 12:30 kick-off on Saturday against Brighton, because if they could get an early goal, maybe even get a second goal against Inter and get this done, he can take off players. But the squad depth has improved so much, and obviously they've got players coming back as well. So, yeah, I'd be very surprised if Liverpool were knocked out tonight. It's just a case of just keep things going. I think one thing, actually, watching them the other day against West Ham, there was a few hairy moments, but just maybe at times the front three, as good as they are, just were taking the wrong option at times. I think Diaz has been sensational since he came in, and we talked about him at the time. He was getting lined up for Spurs, and when we looked at him, we said you could see him fitting into the Liverpool front three on the left-hand side, and that's exactly what he's done. I know he scored the goal against Norwich. You just feel that if he scores a goal, say at a big game like tonight, you could have the real lift-off for Diaz between now and the end of the season, where every time he gets the ball, he's going to shoot and score. That's the only thing that hasn't happened yet. The goals haven't come, but he's just fitted in there so seamlessly. It's
does like to take shots, doesn't he?
He does. And he comes so close. Even against West Ham the other day, there was one where you just thought it was going to curl inside the post, but it just stayed outside. So he has that where he cuts in. You know what he's going to do, but you just can't stop him.
Are his new teammates happy for him always to shoot as often as he's shooting?
I think, I mean,
there was definitely like
there was moments the other day, yeah, but they all were guilty of it. Jota had one later on in the game where he had come on and he fired one high and wide with his left foot into the
That's
cop.
going to be an amazing goal.
So, and look, Salah is obviously an absolute machine in terms of goals. Why does he score so many goals? Because he has that streak in him where when he gets into position, he ain't passing, he's going to shoot.
Fabinho was out doing press before tonight's game. He says that this team is better than the Liverpool team that won the title, won the Champions League. Is he right?
I think so. I can see where he's coming from. Obviously, the squad is better as well. It'll be interesting to see if Thiago starts tonight. Now, he's back from injury. Thiago is a sensational footballer, but at the moment, Liverpool just don't see him enough. And I think the League Cup final summed it all up for him, where you were looking at Thiago starting the Carabao Cup final, and then he's a late withdrawal, and in fairness, Naby Keita came in and did a really good job. And that's the frustration for Liverpool fans, is they watch this guy play and he's unbelievable, and he just hasn't been available enough. When he's available, Liverpool fans are purring at the sight of him, just running games. And look, people will look at his stats. I think Pep Guardiola touched on something interesting last week when he was talking about players. Sometimes you just have to look at them. You don't have to. I know stats play a very important role in football, but sometimes stats, people can look at them too much, where surely your eyes don't lie. You just look at a player and think, unbelievable footballer. Like when you look at Thiago, it's rare he gives the ball away. He can control the tempo of the game. That's exactly why Liverpool bought him, but unfortunately they just haven't had him available enough.
Thiago and Fabinho, how many games do you think that they've lost while playing together for Liverpool?
0.
You read that already, didn't you?
But that's the thing. And
ruining the game, Phil.
Sorry, do it again.
7?
I thought it was a quiz.
No, actually, it's 0.
Wow.
Incredible, right?
Never would have guessed that.
Played together how many times, I wonder? Is this as you pointed out there, the lack of availability has sometimes been a bit of an issue, but it's still a pretty impressive stat.
Yeah, and I think when Thiago's available, it's Fabinho, Thiago +1. And at the moment, it's Henderson. But I definitely think of all the units in the Liverpool squad and starting 11, the midfield is the one where they'd have to add to in the summer. I think they could also do with what's worked really well this season for them. We didn't really get to see that much last season, was Tsimikas.
It's your mic, is it? That was my ears. Sorry, your mic is playing up there. We might try and grab you a new mic. I was like, is there something wrong with my ears?
But there probably is as well. It could be both.
Well, you see the latest research on COVID says that it's damaging the brains of middle-aged people.
So was it only middle-aged people? I did see.
So, you're in the clear. You're grand.
Oh, thank God.
Yeah, because you're like late 20s now.
Yeah, exactly. And once you get to the early 30s,
maybe.
It's a bit of a storm coming into your ears this morning, it seems.
It's after the thunder yesterday, the storm today.
Yeah, exactly. So do you think that's it? COVID, long COVID?
That would explain a lot that's going on in my head at the moment.
Have you got brain fog?
Inability to remember names, words.
Has that not always been an issue for you?
I mean, look, Owen, what goes on behind the curtain was supposed to remain there. Thanks very much for that. Showing how the sausage gets made. Nobody needs to see that. But it's worse. Definitely more pronounced.
Right. Well, just I hope you recover. Is it like maybe it's maybe it'll just leave your brain eventually, COVID, and you'll be fine. Look at me speculating on science.
Good man,
like I know what I'm talking about.
Tweet that there. And then go on a long period where you argue with everybody about it.
Yeah, that would be
good for your brain.
I actually never did that during COVID. I never felt the self-confidence to do it, but.
Now the COVID's over.
Yeah, now I feel that I could have the confidence to become a bit of a immunologist.
An expert,
sorry.
Yeah, exactly. All right, if anybody wants to get in touch, 0879 180 180. How excited are the Liverpool fans out there? Is this team better than... I mean, Fabinho would know, but maybe that's what you have to say. Are they better? Phil, I think you might be back.
I think I'm back, am I?
Yeah, you're
back. Yeah, I don't know what happened there. But,
the one thing about the team being better now than then is that Van Dijk is not at World Footballer of the Year level, right? Which... however, the rest of the team has improved and the strength and depth has improved, and they've added players in who are better than the subs they would have had then. Virgil van Dijk was the best footballer in the world. He didn't win. He should have for a 12-month period. They don't have that at the moment, so they're, I would argue, not quite as good.
Yeah, but he's very close to it. He's not far off it at all, and I would say he's still going to have a chance of getting back to that, because the injury... it was such a serious injury, and he talked about just getting his confidence back mentally as well, knowing that if somebody has a run at him, that he has the legs and the confidence to go with them. And actually think back to the first leg a few weeks ago when Lautaro Martinez got the ball, and Van Dijk was standing in front of him, and he almost just submitted and just turned away and said, I can't take this guy on. But I think as well, what's complemented the Van Dijk as well, obviously Matip is now available, so that central defensive partnership. Even Konate came in the other day against West Ham. I thought he was excellent, because Antonio was a handful for him, and there was one moment in the first half of the game where the two of them were going full tilt, chasing the ball back towards the cop end, and Konate showed just how quick he is. But no, Van Dijk's distribution is still a key component in Liverpool's attack, the way he can just spank a ball 50 yards and pick out Trent Alexander-Arnold out on the right, or if it's Mo Salah. So if he never gets back to his 10 out of 10, he might be a 9 or a 9.5. He's still the best centre-half in the Premier League.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like he's back at that level yet, and that's a fair point. Maybe he will get back to that, but there is a possibility that the injury took like a tiny bit away from him. I guess the counter argument then is that Trent has got better, that Robertson's got better, that the supporting cast is better.
Yeah, absolutely. Alexander-Arnold in particular, and Robertson, and said that push that he's got off Tsimikas, knowing that there's an able deputy there. And I think Liverpool just probably could do with that on the right-hand side, because if Trent Alexander-Arnold's not there, they've obviously played Milner there before, they've played Gomez. Conor Bradley is an up-and-coming young player, but just not at that level that...
Yeah, OK. In the final 40 seconds, is Frank Lampard taking Everton down?
Oof, I don't know what, I'm looking at those fixtures. It's a dangerous game when you play the will they, won't they win, but what they do have is they've 7 home games left of their 13, and they've won 5 from 12 at Goodison. They've only won 1 away game all season, so their home form, if they stay up, it's all down to that. Now, looking at some of the home games, the next 2 home games, the Wolves and Newcastle games, could decide a lot. Wolves I watched that game earlier in the season where Wolves battered them in the first half in particular, and then Newcastle. So if they picked up a win from one of those two games, then they're probably maybe on their way to avoiding relegation. It's really what Burnley do. But Burnley have that in them. Burnley have a fight in them.
Yes,
do
they
Everton
do.
have it?
No.
Leeds lads, telling you.
No, yeah. There is a slow car crash unfolding before our eyes. We will await with bated breath the outcome. Phil, good stuff. Thanks a million for that.
Thanks, lads.
Right, you want to get involved this morning? 087 9180. OTB AM is brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. You can subscribe to the OTB football feed. Search for OTB Football and hit subscribe if you want more or all, indeed, of our football coverage. Our post-match reaction from the Etihad with Brian Kerr, everything from the football show, the football Saturday this week, which was Jack Byrne, and all of those other football pieces as well. We've got football with Nathan Murphy and Graham Hunter. On tomorrow's show, we're going to cross over to Palestine to hear about the Irish in Gaza who are building a gym. Much more as well. Right now, bringing you some Danny Mills and Pat Nevin from last night's football show. Enjoy.
You'd have a feel for this. I'm sure you've been involved in matches where you're getting destroyed and in the final 10-15 minutes you're a broken team and it can look like you have given up, whereas I suspect there are technical and tactical reasons as to why just the backside has fallen out of things. The way Keane presents the Manchester United problem is that it is a problem of character, that there's a toxic dressing room, disputes over the captaincy, lack of focus on the important things, as opposed to, well, I suppose, quality, tactics, any of the more technical aspects you might care to mention. To what extent do you think Keane is accurate in his assessment of Manchester United, that the big flaw with this club is one of character?
I think he's 100% right. Simple as that. And you know, that's not just going off the back of what Roy Keane says. Think of what happened under Louis van Gaal. You know, at times where, you know, he questioned the likes of Luke Shaw. He questioned his attitude. He questioned his fitness. And he wasn't the only player within that. Mourinho then comes in, one of the greatest managers we've ever seen across Europe, has won absolutely everything on more than one occasion. Again, starts questioning players' fitness, questioning their commitment, questions Pogba, falls out with players and this type of thing. And then Ole Gunnar Solskjaer comes in. And okay, some of the results are okay, but it's because you've got good players and you get away with it from time to time. And then you bring in Ralf Rangnick, you know, who clearly wants to play a high pressing team, and clearly the players are not buying into it and they're not doing it. And I think it was summed up in the latter stages of the game. I can't remember, it was 3-1 or 4-1. Manchester City gave the ball away down their right-hand side. And I think it was Luke Shaw started to break away. There were 6 or 7 Manchester City players that swarmed around him. You know, chasing back. It was like Charger, the Light Brigade, you know, trying to get back and stop Luke Shaw. 100% effort until the dying moments, because they know that they are droppable. They know that Pep Guardiola will leave them out. You know, they know the situation. Manchester United players have had it too easy for too long. And as Roy says, too many big egos, not putting the effort in. The biggest difference between Manchester City and Manchester United was work rate. I've not seen the stats, but I watched the game. I did the game live for foreign television. The biggest difference was work rate. If you don't work as hard as the opposition, you've got no chance. And then if they're better than you, technically, you're going to get pulverised, which is exactly what happened. And those Manchester United players need to have a serious look at themselves. I was listening to the radio coming back last night here in the UK. Manchester United fans were devastated. And they were saying these players are not working hard enough, don't feel like they're putting the effort in. So this is not just Roy Keane. This is not just media pundits. This is everybody looking at it and saying, hang on a minute, we're not getting our money's worth here.
Mm. You've seen lots of players through your time in the game and you've been in lots of dressing rooms. To make it as a professional footballer is outrageously difficult. And generally as a personality, you're not in the habit of giving up or not trying very hard or not making colossal efforts day in, day out. And I would think that's especially true if you make it at Manchester United. So what do you think happens to players who presumably through their teenage years have worked outrageously hard to then get to a point where you're saying, well, their character has gone out the window as more established players? How does that happen? Why does that happen in your experience?
I think their focus changes. Off the field issues can change it. Money can affect it. Big contracts, hunger, desire, all these types of things can be thrown into it. You know, look at Manchester City. So go back to Manchester United under Sir Alex Ferguson. To win, 13 Premier League titles? To win 1 is hard enough. To win 2 is even harder. To win 4, 5, 6, 7, up to 13 takes so much desire to go out every single day and work your socks off. And this is why only the very, very best and the greatest are able to achieve that. And if you look at an Olympic cycle and you look at athletics, it's very, very difficult to win back-to-back Olympic titles, however good you are, simply because you have to peak for about 5-6 years, you know, within that. You have to be at your very, very best every single day for 6 years to win back-to-back Olympic titles. And that's similarly what Manchester City are doing, you know, and that desire, that hunger is incredibly difficult to do. When Leicester won the title, they dropped off massively the year after because they'd reached their pinnacle, you know, and then they started to fade away a little bit. I think Manchester United players think, you know, we've achieved something. We've got there. We're playing for Manchester United, and they've not continued to improve. Has Rashford continued to improve? No. Has Pogba ever really improved since he came into Manchester United? Bruno Fernandes now, has he improved from his first season? No. Most of these, Harry Maguire, most of these players are going backwards. And yes, okay, that can be down to confidence, but the only way to get over that is to work harder. First and foremost, you have to outwork your opposition. Simple as that.
Yeah.
You know, if you outwork them, you've got half a chance.
No, I do accept that. And yet, I look at some of the personalities, like Maguire, for instance. He seems like a very diligent, hard-working type. He just gives off that impression. And so it makes you wonder if this is a more complicated picture than, they're just not working hard enough. They just don't care.
When you're having a bad time of it, you have to work harder. That's all you can do. You know, you have to work smart and you have to work harder. Look at the first goal. 3 players allowed Bernardo Silva down the left-hand side to get the cross in. The save comes off David De Gea, and Harry Maguire steps over the ball. Just kick the ball out. So what happens is, once you start getting this right, you start to make bad decisions. You know, so, you know, they're not working hard enough, they're making poor decisions, and of course, and I've said all along, Manchester United have some very good players. And if all those players come together for one game and play well, they can beat anybody on their day. But they don't have the consistency, they don't have the platform to do that. And this is the problem. You know, forget about Manchester United DNA. Manchester United DNA is about winning. But they don't have a plan. Ralph Rangnick is trying to put a plan in place to give them a bit of stability, and they did okay in the first half. So why change it? What in the second half? What changed about Manchester United in that second half? They dropped off. They didn't work as hard. I'd love to see the running stats, you know, from that game. I bet Manchester City worked harder, and they had the ball, which is very, very unusual for a team that has the ball to work harder than a team without the ball. I said when Sir Alex Ferguson left that Manchester United won't win the title for another 10 years. I got slaughtered by Manchester United fans. I think that's next year, isn't it? So if they don't win it next year, I was right. And they've never really replaced. And it's not just, it's the coaching staff. You know, what are the coaches doing? I look at the bench and the coaches on the bench under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, under Ralph Rangnick. Are they driving the players day in, day out, like Pep Guardiola does? Are they listening to the manager? Doesn't appear that they are at the moment.
And that's what you feel the big difference in the second half was? Just work rate dropped off? You didn't see anything that City did all that differently or Manchester United did all that differently besides work rate?
I texted my son halfway through, or just not long into the second half, and just said, look at how Manchester City move when they're trying to get on the ball. The movement of Grealish, of Foden, of Mahrez, of De Bruyne, Bernardo Silva, the front players especially. When they come off a player, they sprint. They don't walk into space. You know, when they're trying to receive the ball, they sprint 5-10 yards, they get into that pocket, they get into that space, and then they're free. Manchester United players were ambling around. So sometimes, you know, it doesn't have to be, you're not talking about running up and down the pitch. It's those 5-yard moves. They have to be short. They have to be sharp. And Manchester United weren't doing that. And that the only reason for that can come down to attitude. Manchester United have some very, very talented players and players with an awful lot of ability. Anyone can work hard. Anyone can run. I made a living out of it. I made a career out of working hard and kicking people and being difficult to beat. I had limited ability. But I worked hard, and I worked harder than other players because I had to make up for those deficiencies. Manchester United are going out at the moment, and it seems like they just think they've got a divine right to play football and win football matches, and football doesn't work like that.
Yeah. Or else it's a fairly demoralised dressing room who don't believe in what their manager is telling them, which is a possibility here. I mean, what would you think if you were playing in a team and the plan was to go out in it looked 4-2-2-2-ish again, McTominay, Fred, Elanga, Sancho and Bruno Fernandes, Pogba as your front two? I mean, you would be thinking, this is odd. This is a really weird approach.
Yeah, but it didn't. Pretty much same group of players didn't want to do it under Mourinho. Didn't do it enough under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. Now not doing it under Ralph Rangnick. Same group of players. It can't be every single manager, and even Van Gaal before that. You're talking world-class managers, within that, and great coaches. Can't be 4 managers can't be wrong, and formations are there as a starting point. Simple. What formation did Man City play yesterday? Apart from 4 at the back.
Yeah, it's pretty fluid.
And Rodri holding, I'm not sure.
On your point though, so the football under Van Gaal, I mean, they did what he asked them to do, I suppose. It was fairly dull stuff. I mean, it was pass into complete boredom. I'd have to say Mourinho, so we're saying the Manchester United players are the common denominator here. Mourinho hasn't found a dressing room which was good since about 2011. The Spurs dressing room was awful. The Roma dressing room was awful. He was fairly toxic himself, and he was effectively bullying. He was effectively bullying Luke Shaw. He turned to the crowd and Rashford missed a chance. How can I work with this? Everything he said was just negative. And he got some results, admittedly, but second in the league is okay, and he wins the Europa League. But there's something about Mourinho that's toxic, and then I don't think we can put Solskjaer into the top bracket of managers. So I would still question whether like a really top manager has had a hold of this group since Ferguson left. Really, like Mourinho was past his best. Solskjaer's not on that level. Van Gaal would have question marks over. Moyes wasn't really given a chance. So as much as we're down in this dressing room, I'd feel a lot more confident saying that if a peak Conte or a peak Pep or a peak Klopp had gone in there, because they would do a hell of a lot more with these players. I think the players are being thrown at the bus as well.
And then you're looking at the quality of the players. Are they good enough? David De Gea has come good again this season. Luke Shaw has a couple of good games, a couple of off games.
Yeah.
Has never really shown the consistency. Had 6 months lead into the Euros. People are talking about the best left back in the world. Not a chance. Look at how Ashley Cole used to play. The consistency that he hit. Lindelof. I'm sorry, but you're not going to win the league, with Lindelof, in there. Aaron Wan-Bissaka. I mean, I don't want to damage the kid, but he's not great going forward. He made poor defensive decisions. He looks way out of his depth at Manchester United. When you look at the fullbacks that Manchester United have had in the past, Evra, Neville, Dennis Irwin, he's nowhere near it. And then you look at Fred and McTominay. How many United players at the moment would be taken by the rest of the top 6? I don't think there's too many in there.
And I sort of think that's the issue, as opposed to these guys aren't trying or are bad professionals. I think there's a quality issue there, primarily.
Yeah, well, and then Bruno Fernandes on his day, yes. Rashford has never really shown the consistency levels that he needs to be at. Sancho has only just come in and getting his opportunity. Bruno Fernandes and Ronaldo, yes, but Ronaldo's not going to press. He's not going to chase people down and do what he has to do. Cavani is injured a lot, an awful lot at the moment. So I think it is. You have to look at recruitment of coaches, recruitment of players. It hasn't been good enough at Manchester United, So there's that. And then if the players don't believe in the manager's philosophy, if Conte came into that team now, what has Conte done at every single club? Get the players fitter, make them work harder. I don't think those Manchester United players want to do that at the moment because they haven't done it for the last 2 or 3 managers. So why would they do it suddenly just because Conte comes in? I think they need an overhaul in the summer.
They've spent $1 billion, so like they've spent $1 billion, and the net result is they're nowhere.
But the money's irrelevant.
Yeah,
they've spent poorly.
They really have. If they're starting over, do you think the Ronaldo introduction has been good for the group or no?
No, I don't. Ronaldo is the greatest goal scorer, I think, of my time that I ever seen in terms of big company. I would still argue that Messi is a better footballer and a better player, but Ronaldo is the greatest goal scorer, for big moments, all those types of things. But it's interesting. I did a game, commentating on a game early in the season against Young Boys, obviously on the AstroTurf pitch, which was horrific. The pitch was awful. It didn't help anybody. Man sent off, and you've got Ronaldo up front on his own, 36, 37. He's not going to run into the channels. He's not going to chase the fullback. He's not going to put the centre halves under pressure. And actually, I don't want Ronaldo to do that if he's my centre forward. I'm like, stay in the box, get balls into the box, and let him shoot and let him score. So, because he's Ronaldo, you keep playing him, and you feel Ole Gunnar Solskjaer felt you have to play him because it's Cristiano Ronaldo. He has to. So then that detracts from the rest of the team.
And if the team
want to press, of course it is. If they want to press, and he's not doing it, you start going, hang on a minute. If he's not going to do it, what's the point in me doing it? Because I'm going to get caught out.
Yes.
And all of a sudden, that can filter through the team very, very quickly.
Yes. The players sense this is wrong. Tactically, this is wrong. And yet, politically, he's staying on because Solskjaer's afraid to bring him off. And so players know something's really wrong here if this isn't a meritocracy anymore.
Of course. And players are, people always go, footballers aren't the brightest. When it comes to football intelligence and working things out in terms of football, footballers are some of the quickest people on the planet. They see when it's not right. They see when it's unfair. They see when somebody's getting treated differently and they don't agree with it. And I think that's been the case. The introduction of... Did Ronaldo really ever have any intentions, or did Man City have ever intentions of taking Ronaldo to Manchester City? I don't think they did. Because Pep questioned whether Sergio Aguero was good enough for Manchester City. One of the greatest goal scorers we've ever seen in the Premier League, questioned him and said, look, he doesn't play in the way that I want him to play. And of course, at the time, I think he was, mid-20s and scoring loads of goals. And he adapted. You're not going to get a 36, 37-year-old Cristiano Ronaldo to adapt and suddenly start pressing high up the pitch and playing like, putting the effort in that Phil Foden or Bernardo Silva or Raheem Sterling or, Kevin De Bruyne puts in. And I think that's the problem. You've got Ronaldo, who's this huge personality, genius footballer, a leader, icon. Everybody's looking up to him in awe of him, but he's not doing what you want the team to do. So everyone else goes, well, if he's not going to do it, why do I have to do it? And I think, and that's where I think that a lot of the problem lies. If I was Manchester United, I think with a new manager coming in the summer, one of the best things they could do is move Cristiano Ronaldo on. Not because he's a bad player, not because he's a bad influence, just because a new manager needs a fresh start. And with Cristiano Ronaldo around, you don't have that opportunity.
All show this evening, second half just underway between Spurs and Everton. Not a good evening for Everton thus far. They are 3-0 down, it could be more. Michael Keane on goal on 14 minutes. We had Son scoring on 17. We had Matt Doherty with the beautiful through ball for Harry Kane to make it 3-0 on 37 minutes. And as I speak, 45 minutes and 42 seconds on the clock. Second half has just started. Spurs have gone 4-0 up against Everton. It's getting ugly. It is getting very, very ugly for Everton. What's this going to be? 45 minutes? 4-0? Frank Lampard's staring at the replay. I don't think there'll be much solace there. This really is an extraordinary situation. We'll get a look at the goal again in a moment. There's shaking of heads in the Everton defence and screaming. It's a move. Well, it's not even a move. It's Everton dispossessed in their own half. Spurs pressing and cutting through Everton, and it's all hands on deck. Ball is played out to the right-hand side and then squared back across the area, and it's tap in. Reguilón with the goal. up from left back. If it wasn't him, it would have been Harry Kane. It's disastrous. Son with the pass out to the right-hand side, and then it was squared back across the area, and Reguilón scored. So 4-0 Spurs against Everton. 46 minutes on the clock. Pat and Evan. Dear, oh dear.
I'm just suffering watching that right as we speak just now. Everton are a wee bit lucky. It's only 4. In the first half, 2 other goals. Certainly, Son had a great opportunity to slip a pass in, and there was another opportunity missed as well. And it is a classic case of every time they attack look like they're going to score. If Everton, Frank Lampard's already taken Keane off and put Branthwaite on, it's a mess. He had to change it completely. Looking through that Everton team, it is an utter shambles at the moment. There's nobody marking in front of the back 4 who are enjoying watching Spurs playing because they're not doing any tackling or any chasing. The amount of times that Kane and Son get the ball in that kind of 10 position, no one near them, no one getting close to them. It's supposed to be Allen in there. All you ever see is him running back. And Van de Beek, honestly, I have no clue why you're playing him there. I have no clue at all. You got to get the Curry back there, get it really tight. I could go on and on and on. I was at Goodison Park last week there on Thursday for the game against Boreham Wood, 0-0 at half time, and you're thinking, oh my God, this is so embarrassing. Frank made the right changes at half time. I have no idea what he does in the second half to change that, and apart from moving one centre back off, it's a mess. And you're right to ask it. What I've watched here, 4, this could be anything if Spurs keep on going for it. Honestly, it could be anything.
And they look in the mood, Spurs. They don't look like they're letting up, to be honest.
Well, you know, if you've got Harry Kane, he's got goal records. He's just he's 2 behind Frank Lampard now in the Premier League statistics. He's level with Thierry Henry, as I understand it, as well, as after scoring today. So he's not going to be sitting back thinking. If you're a centre forward like Son and Kane, you're just thinking to yourself, yeah, I want to go and increase my goals tally. It's like party time here, fill your boots. But just little things watching that game, like watching Doucouré, who is perfectly capable of being a very good player. He's having one of those Paul Pogba I don't fancy it days. And it's ridiculous he's not put a tackle in. Bentancur is absolutely bossing him. It's actually quite painful. It's really painful to watch. And, you know, we had conversations, and a lot of Everton fans were having a right dig at me about, you know, they weren't impressed with Rafa at all. And I was saying, well, I'm not convinced it's Rafa. You know, the players that Rafa had, the limitations of the quality of players he had and didn't have time to change them. Frank comes in, you're thinking, yeah, lift them a wee bit, but still the same blogs, still the same guys. And Frank's actually got Dominic Calvert-Lewin back and Richarlison on the pitch at the same time here. But it's looked awful tonight. I mean, that first half against Boreham was better than the second half. First half against Boreham was a mess, and it's... I mean, that looks like a team that is absolutely... And no Everton fan will disagree with this. They are well capable of going down. If you play like that, you will go down. But fortunately for Everton, their home games are a wee bit better than their away games.
Yeah, well, I was just going to say, because I was about to make the point in advance of this evening that if you look at the bottom, Newcastle and Eddie Howe have rocketed away from trouble very quickly. They're up to 14th and they have games in hand. We can risk writing off Norwich and Watford, and then it feels like a fight between Burnley, Leeds and I suppose Brentford. And I had discounted Everton a touch. On the basis of a few things, Lampard came in, seemed to make a bit of an impression. They beat Leeds very well. It was a spirited performance against Manchester City, and you thought, well, they'll be okay. Fact remains, they have lost 4 of their last 5, and they've Wolves next at home, and then they have Newcastle at home. Newcastle won't be easy. Wolves is about the most winnable game, but you look at Everton's April, and they have West Ham away. They have Manchester United, who you would presume can't be as terrible, but then again, we'll come to that. Manchester United, they have Liverpool, they have Chelsea. That's their April. West Ham away, Manchester United, Liverpool, Chelsea. It's very conceivable Everton could get 0 points across April and be in a real dogfight. And on the basis of this evening, it could be sticky indeed. Could I ask you about Seamus Coleman? I didn't really get to see all of this because I've been on air, but I did get to see the halftime analysis, and they were showing the Michael Keane own goal, and the ball was played down the left channel, Spurs' left channel, Seamus Coleman's channel, and Jamie Carragher, in a pretty respectful way, was saying, look, Coleman's been a great right back, a really great right back, but this is happening all the time to him now, players running in off behind him, and actually the issue there is Everton's recruitment and also his centre-half's not protecting him. Is Coleman and his tenure in, really emergency stage and it's just not cutting it anymore, or is there more to it than that?
Well, you asked me about Patterson in comparison to him and Coleman, and I told you right away, Coleman's days are numbered there. Yeah. He's had his time, but I said his days are numbered. Paterson's top quality. He's going to come on. He's going to be absolutely fine. Patterson actually started the game against Bournemouth. He gets substituted at half time and Coleman was brought on. The Everton fans applauded every single thing Patterson did, every single thing, because they could spot right away his class. And in fact, took him off, but he didn't take him off because he was playing badly. He had to go from a 5 to a 4, and he wanted to set fullbacks that he knew would just be fullbacks, and he gets an extra forward on then. That's what happened the weekend. That's why Coleman come on for Patterson, not the weekend, the Thursday night. But watching Seamus there, it's not the same Seamus Coleman, and that's paying a compliment to say how brilliant he was, and flying forward. But if you compare, it's not that he's incapable of going forward, but if you go forward, he won't get back in time now, and it just looks like there's a number of teams trying to play in him defensively if they possibly can. But it's not just Seamus. It's not absolutely not. I mean, he's not the worst player in that defensive line today, not by a long chalk. He's still doing all the right things when he should be doing them. But in terms of the pace you need to keep on going at this level all the time, it's getting really, really hard for Seamus. So a bit like Jamie, you hate writing off somebody that you like so much, that has been so brilliant, particularly, he's phenomenal for Everton. He's the perfect class act for Everton all the time as well. But you look at it, that's one of the areas that they'll have to, he can't play every game. And at the moment, it's looking at the days are numbered.
Yeah. On a brighter note, Matt Doherty seems to have had a very good evening. Looks really fit again. He got lots of minutes, and he's had that assist for Harry Kane as Spurs almost score again, and it's last-ditch stuff, and it's out for a corner. But there's another goal coming here, I think. So 4-0 still, 54 minutes on the clock. With Matt Doherty, Jose Mourinho signs him, doesn't work out at all. He struggles to adapt to a back four, and then lo and behold, Nuno arrives, where he played his best football under Nuno at Wolves, and you think, well, okay, finally the ball will start rolling here. Nuno gets the chop and also passes on Doherty, doesn't like what he's seen from Doherty, and that's where I thought, well, this is big trouble here. And then sometimes you need a bit of luck, and so who arrives in as Spurs hit the crossbar, by the way, with a header, another goal coming, Eric Dyer at the header there. Who arrives in but Conte, who likes wing backs, and you think, okay, Matt Doherty, it's now or never. Well, we may be getting now.
Looks like it. There was one moment in the first half where he attacked, at the back post, and he probably should have cut it back, but he smashed it, and the keeper, Pickford, made a decent save. But that's him, isn't it? When he's got that power and that physique to go forward the way he does there. And you can see the confidence is in his game. There's no doubt about that. And there's...
Sorry to interrupt you. Sorry to interrupt you. I'll just say, the Wi-Fi is a little bit off, actually. As you were speaking there, Matt Doherty picked the ball inside right channel, played an absolutely delicious diagonal ball over the top to Harry Kane, and Harry Kane volleys it in with his left foot to make it 5-0. So Doherty involved again with an assist for Harry Kane. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm about 45 seconds behind you. Watching it here. So you're giving me the bad news before I actually get it. But yeah, you can see that confidence is coming back. But if you look at physically, the pure physique in terms of, say Seamus against him, and you can tell the difference. You can see and you can feel the difference. But it's what I'm saying about teams. You don't become a bad player or a good player. Sometimes you just get in a system with a manager and someone playing beside you that suits you. And it's, people wonder, why didn't you do that last week? Well, the manager was telling me to do something totally different. I had a different manager with different ideas last week. They get a new guy in, adapts and change, and then you add the top of that, which is, I'm just seeing the Kane goal. He's quite good, that guy, Harry Kane, isn't he?
It's outrageous. It's an outrageous finish. Oh my God.
Is he swinger? That's if he's got a swinger.
Yeah.
He's right. I don't actually know if he's right-footed or left-footed. It kind of doesn't seem to matter. But it's torture for me. I want Everton to do well. I've got a lot of time for Frank as well. But when you see something as good as that, and the way he technically takes the ball, and how the vast majority of players in that position, they're at an angle, it's going to lash somewhere. They're going to hit and hope, and you never know, it might just smash into the top corner, right? See with Harry Kane, he knows exactly what he's doing. He's running away from the ball, running away from the goal. The angle's ridiculous. The goalkeeper's got it covered. But he knows the one tiny area that he can smack it on the volley with his left foot at the back post. He hits the inside of the post. I mean, he is absolutely stunning. And considering all those millions of years ago when we thought he was going to go to Manchester City, and he looks like Harry Kane again, doesn't he? Yeah. And he's been actually this whole game he's been fantastic at every single part of his game, and that is pure torture. And looking at Everton just now, I mean I can remember, and I'll own up to it right away, and it's painful to talk about. I remember getting beat 6-2 by Aston Villa while playing for Everton at Aston Villa, and that was just not totally unthinkable for Everton and Evertonians. I mean, we hit the post about 4 times, etc., 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 but 6-2. I couldn't imagine that would happen to Everton again. And you're looking at it just now and you think, if they get away with 6 tonight, they've won a watch.
Yeah.
They're that far away and the quality is that bad. Now, Godfrey's missing. Yeremina's missing. You can make all those excuses as well. But you have to have depth of squad. And that's it's been the problem for Everton for for a decently long time now. It's pre-Rafa. It's pre-Frank. The strength and depth in the squad is nowhere near good enough for this level, and they're paying the price now.
Pat, all that said, I'm really not sure on Frank Lampard. There's been nothing really to suggest this guy's a top-level manager. Like, he did a fine job at Derby, he introduced young players at Chelsea, but I would say Thomas Tuchel has cast a different light on the job he did at Chelsea, and this is really terrible. I mean, and you mentioned a couple of players playing in odd positions that catch your eye. If this kind of a night happens a year into Lampard's tenure or 18 months, he's potentially walking the plank. This is really worrying.
No, I think you're right. The questions will be asked after this. I think they will, even just after this, because they're facing relegation. They've been the way they set up tonight, Everton, it was a 4-1-4-1. But, with Allen as the deep line midfielder and them getting destroyed in that area, Doucouré, who, if he's got something, he's got energy. But his energy should be from, coming from deep, from really deep. He's spending the time around the 10 area, and Van de Beek just doesn't look as if he can make a tackle there. So he's put out a team there. And I'm looking before half-time thinking, Frank, change that to a 4-2-3-1 now. Just change it now. You need to give protection to that back line. Now, he'll say his back line should be better than the full-backs and the 2 centre-backs. Well, they ain't at the moment, so give them protection. Get 2 guys standing in front of them and get 2 guys who actually want to go and do a little bit of defending. It's taken a long time now for the changes to be made. I mean, I'm mentioning Van de Beek, honestly, he's actually looked like a ghost out there. The play just goes through him. There's nothing, absolutely play just goes by him all the time. He's off now, isn't he? I think.
Yeah, just off.
Palenko's come on there. And, to see that after like 10 minutes and think, right, shambles, change it now. But only changing it after 55, 60 minutes. Now, he's now got a lot of options, Frank. It's come back to is it his fault? Is it Rafa's fault? Or is it you've left them with, just a stinker of a squad that's got no balance to it? And any two players missing. And it doesn't matter who they are. If it's Mina at the back of Godfrey, who's the best defender, or if it's Richarlison, or if it's Dominic Calvert-Lewin, they're stuffed. They're absolutely stuffed. There's nowhere near the backup. And it's plugging the holes, and there are not enough fingers in the holes. So Frank, by the end of the season, if they go down, they absolutely will ask those questions. Is Frank good enough manager? And we did talk about this when Frank was made manager. And you will have noted that I like him.
Yeah.
I like positivity. He will be much more positive than, say, Rafa Benitez. And the fans hated Rafa Benitez for a number of reasons, but one of the reasons they couldn't stand Rafa Benitez is because he was safe. He was ultra safe. They found him unbelievably boring. And that's fine as long as you're getting wins, but he wasn't getting enough wins. But when you look at a team like Everton, when they play a wee bit more open, and they're getting absolutely battered out of sight, you think, well, I think I can see what Rafa was doing. I think I know why he was playing that group that way, because he knew the limitations.
Yeah, very interesting. The cameras just cut to Conte. Just one last question on this game. I hadn't intended to spend so much time on it, by the way. But I saw Jamie Carragher on Monday Night Football threw up just an unbelievably interesting statistic, and I just wanted to get your take on it. I'd be inclined to say this is coincidence, but it's a big enough sample size to suggest there is something to it. So, and by the way, I don't know how he got this stat or what, where he plucked this from. So whoever kind of looked into this and found the pattern, they deserve a big thumbs up. Spurs and Antonio Conte. When Conte and Spurs have had 5 days or more training before a game, in their 7 matches where this has happened, and we're talking Man City, we're talking Liverpool, we're talking Leicester, we're talking Leeds, we're talking good teams, he's had 6 wins and a draw. The draw with Liverpool and 6 wins when they've had 5 days or more training under Conte. Same sample size, 7 games under Conte where they've had 4 days or fewer. 7 games, 1 win. That's an unbelievable statistic.
It's surprising but not shocking when I watch them play, and particularly the way I watched them play tonight. If you look at when Everton are trying to play out the back, and they've just closed down really, really quickly. Any part of the game you watch, your energy levels at Spurs closing down, no one's got any room in midfield. You know, Højbjerg, they'll get close, Bentancur, they'll get close, zip, 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 zip. Really, really hard to do. It's really, really hard to do for 90 minutes. It's really hard to do against good players. You need to have all the energy you've got. You take away a couple of days worth of rest, and that just gets much, much harder. And it's very noticeable, Spurs. They do look languid some of the times when we play those games when too much is asked in a short period of time. Now, some people will say it's maybe the fact that he's got more time to work on them and shape and structure, but he's got the shape and structure. He knows what it is. He's put them in that shape. It's not complicated for his history. He knows what he wants, and they'll know what they want from him as well. It's been a really settled team, whether they've had the 3 days or the 5-6 days, whatever sort of break. And I do think it is the style they play, which is, de rigueur just now, high tempo, high pressing. Certain teams can, and certain teams can't do it. Spurs could never do it until he comes along. But I still don't think they can do it every 3 days. But they can do it with a break. And we've talked about it with Manchester United. They cannot do it. They just cannot do it. They can do it for 15, 20 minutes or 25 or a real push. I watched them once this season and they did 45, I think it was against Aston Villa. And then after that, they just, gasket goes. Whereas with Spurs, he's done whatever he's done to get them that fit to be able to cope with doing that. I always think about, when I'm watching a game of football, I think, would I like playing against that? And I watch Everton and I think, I'd love to play against that. And I watch Spurs and I think, that'd be hard. I wouldn't be getting a lot of time there, wherever I was in the field. And I think 90% of it, not all of it, but 90% of it, is being able to build up those energy levels, rest, and then be able to go to that level again.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Amazing the difference a day or two rest can make it this kind of level. So we're 5-0. Harry Kane has scored twice, which means he has just moved past Henry's Premier League record of 175 goals. Kane is now on 176, sitting on 177.
Guess who's next?
Yeah, exactly. Frank Lampard.
We know it's Frank, don't we?
Looking on. So there's just something in the air this evening.
OTB AM.
With Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs razor with exfoliating bar.